All right. What's up, everybody? How you doing out there? Welcome back to the show. This is last week's fights. My name is Thinker St. James, and tonight we are going over each and every fight from UFC 325, Volkanovski versus Lopes 2, taking a look at the upcoming UFC Fight Night, which is Bautista versus Oliveira. And to do all of that with me, as always, the man, myth, and legend, the Ohio player, a man who is going to be known as the Battle Giraffe around here if Cam Rouston's not going to be using it, Mr. Chase Parton. How the hell are you, brother?
I'm all right, of course. It is Monday. We had fights on Saturday. I am excited to talk about them because the UFC, listen, guys, it's back like it never left. We're at the second consecutive week, and we had two PLEs to start off. And this one, I'm excited to talk about a lot of different stuff here.
Yeah, how about that, huh? I'm struggling to think of another time. I mean, I'm sure that there has been, maybe definitely back in the early days, but in recent memory, two numbered events back to back like this. This is a kind of a unique thing. Of course, we're now two events into the Paramount deal, so things are starting to work themselves out a little bit on that, and the train keeps moving right along. So good deal there, and a decent little event here to continue on this path that we are now on.
Yeah, I actually remembered a lot more from this than I think I'm looking back, and I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, oh man, but I remember this being really, really good. When I left Saturday, I was like, that was good. That was a fulfilling event, so I was
There's
excited to talk about.
Sure, yeah, there were certainly some great performances on it. There were some very frustrating moments, of course. A lot of stuff that we're going to get into as we always do. Appreciate you guys coming in a little bit early. Our wonderful chat, the best chat in all of MMA YouTube and live streaming. Beeb is here. Lachlan is here. You guys are locked in. That is what is up, guys. Thank you very much for being here with that. Aside from the event, is there any other? I know that you watched one championship as you always do on Friday mornings. Was there any other stuff that we wanted to talk about?
Honestly, I don't even think so. Like you said, you watched Dirty Boxing. I kept
I
up with
did.
this as well. There's nothing really to note. I mean, this was just another week for one, and Dirty Boxing, getting questionable at this point is what I would say.
Well, and I think that that would be the note that I would have is that another week for one is a week full of great fights and good finishes. Another event for Dirty Boxing, yeah, questionable is about what I would put that at. I mean, there were a couple of choice moments on it. I think Travis St. John, I believe, is the
The
guy who had.
firefighter with the Superman punch.
Yes, very, very nice there. Actually, a good utilization of the rule set and the structure of Dirty Boxing that makes that potentially exciting. So, good deal on that. But it's like what we were saying in the chat on that one, and what really kills me about it is like they Dirty Boxing did all of the things aside from taking away the gloves that bare knuckle, provides. Aside from that, it did everything you possibly could to make boxing more exciting, and it still turned out mid on this card.
Unfortunately, this was the first, maybe not the first, but I've turned on Dirty Boxing before in my household, and this one my dad was able to tune in for.
Mhm.
He went to sleep very early on. That was not what he was looking forward to.
Yeah, and there are five events in Dirty Boxing. Not necessarily going to have the quality level every single event, perhaps. So there's nothing to say that this can't get better, but this one was a little bit lacking, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree because I was keeping up, and it was hard to keep up for a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes, like,
Right.
I know this was the beginning of the event, but this is just the one thing. Like, the show started out with the lights not even turning on for the first fight. Like that.
And
Like,
Mike Perry asking, where's my camera? Hey, excuse you. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, I love that kind of stuff, though. That's like grassroots elements. I don't care about the production side of it as much as I care about the quality of the fights.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Yeah, speaking of, there was a dude that was 10-10 in MMA, and he was 2-0 in Dirty Boxing.
Oh, yes, that
One
is
of
very
the
true.
worst. One
Yes.
of the worst. And this is actually to note, questionable thing from Dirty Boxing. I'm glad that I get the moment to bring it up. They had a 3-round bout. Okay, normally you would judge them out of 30, like they did when they go to the scoring, but they went to sudden death. How did the sudden death, and then it ended up in a decision again? But then they didn't even count that in the decision, so it was still out of 30. If you recall what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, no, you make a great point with that because when on the commentary on the watch along, I said, oh well, they probably just throw out that sudden death overtime round, and I'm like, well, yeah, but then why would they have needed to gone to it if they?
It's not even just why would they have needed to gone to it. It's like, but then how do they decide who won? If that's the last round, And it's still a decision. Are you not judging it? Like, what are you judging off of? The 3 rounds before or the last
Yeah,
three?
that's what I would say is that they were judging off the original 3 rounds. But if it was so close in those 3 rounds that it needed a fourth, then how could there be a decision to come out of that? It very strange. Again, same thing, very similar to karate combat, and what we've said about at least the officiating probably extends also to the scorekeeping, the judging, and all of that kind of stuff as well, where it's like there's a loose rule set that you basically think that you're following, but at the end of the day, it's kind of just a bit of a make 'em up. There's, I mean, and maybe there's a perfectly fine logical explanation to all of that we don't know about, but in the moment, it's a little bit difficult to surmise that and to understand that. And if we dug deeper, I don't know if we necessarily would get the answer we're looking for.
And absolutely, and I wanted to give a shout out and, damn, I'm blanking the name off the top of my head, but Thinker, you're gonna know it. We had a buddy that was at the event of Dirty Boxing. Give a shout out right now.
Yes, Bleeding Edge MMA. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Very cool that he was there. He said it was a great time in person. So shout out to him. I posted some pictures in the Discord. If you are hanging out and are not in the Discord, definitely join up in the Discord. You'll be chatting with us MMA and all kinds of combat sports throughout the week as well. But yeah, Bleeding Edge was there. I said it was a great time. I said I'm glad that you had a good time in person. Watching at home was what it was.
And to be fair, these were reasonable seats that we saw pictures from. I mean, we saw a lot of celebrities in these pictures as well too. We got some questionable characters in this crowd. I'm not going to be the one to bring it up because I don't know anything about this, but it looked like an
Yeah.
event.
Sure. Yeah. No. Honestly, I don't know if I even want to really necessarily mention it either, just because I don't know the legalities of all
Yeah.
of what was involved with that. But suffice to say, Bleeding Edge met some
Suffice to
interesting
say, we're
people.
talking about John Jones. Everybody, this dude's a criminal, and he was there.
Yeah, because like John Jones throwing full bottles of drink into the crowd. That I mean, granted they were probably plastic, but either way, still could have beamed someone tremendously. And John with no caution in that regard, just lobbing him up into the crowd. And I hope that there were no children who ended up catching one of those to the face.
100%, yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
so
either
that
way.
was yeah, that was one, and that was Dirty Boxing, everybody. We did a quick recap for you. If anybody needed to get anything out, you chat, here's your moment because we are going to get into the good stuff here soon.
Absolutely. I mean, this is last week's fights. Those were the fights that we saw aside from UFC last week. So now we can get right into the meat and the potatoes here. You want to talk about UFC 325, Chase?
I absolutely would, and I actually want to make a quick note that it is in Sydney, Australia. The aerial views and the drone shots of Australia in this event, this promotional package that we got in a lot of different, when there was ad breaks and coming back from commercials. This is what I'm talking about. This is the type of shit I want to see when we go to China, when we go to Singapore. I need to see the area. I need to see what's going on. I need to see these structures and landmarks that you have here. I didn't know, like when you see Sydney and you're looking at it, you're like, oh, these are like a lot of islands. Like it's not just like one big. It's like no, there's just a shitload of houses just on islands. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy to see.
No, absolutely. Yeah. The beauty of the area comes through in the interstitials and the B-roll and all of that kind of stuff. And I mean, Australia, Sydney, beautiful place. So good to see all of that. Absolutely. I mean, I think that a couple of things, peripheral stuff before we get into the fights, a couple of things noticeably different, at least to me. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not perceiving them exactly correctly, but am I wrong that it seemed like they lessened a little bit on the advertising this go around?
It wasn't that they lessened on it. I think you saw them transition to their newer style of advertisement where we get the picture in picture type dealio. We did
They
not have
had
that the first time go around, I don't believe.
Well, they had some of that. They did have a little bit of that at certain times. I do remember that from the first event. But I mean, I know that we saw a couple more walkouts. I know that we saw, maybe a couple of times that we actually got cornering as well. I mean, they might just mix it up, but maybe you get a little bit of that in the prelims and not as much on the main card, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure that they're kind of working through all of how they want to do all of that, but it seemed like a streamlined presentation that was a little bit more palatable, at least to me. Again, maybe I wasn't being as critical of the initial version of it, so maybe I wasn't like picking up as much as other people were, but I was not dissatisfied with the advertising as it was laid out for us this time.
This was definitely a better go around for Paramount. I would say there was less lagging and less coming back from an advertisement and not being live. There was less of that, but there was definitely some connection issues going on during this. I was getting pixels all over the fucking place when it came to some of these fights, and I presumably everybody was going through this, but it is to know.
Yes, no, absolutely. It was so much so that I always go back and rewatch all of these fights before the show. They had them on the rebroadcast at points, so I was like, okay, obviously it's not just individuals that are getting this. It's kind of odd. It does seem to be that there are different versions of problems for different people. Like shout out to the hot cat milf. She's a friend of the channel. She was checking in on the watch along and saying that like at one point her audio was getting all weird. And she sent me a clip and it sounded like Bruce Buffer was like a robot. Like it got like kind of death metal vocally for a second there. So it's just like different oddness going on around different people's broadcasts, but the core broadcast definitely did have a couple of times with problems that was showing up on the rebroadcast there.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. And I think there's one last thing. I know I talked about the aerial shots and I talked about a lot of the landmarks and stuff. Specifically, I want to talk about and to shout out to all the Aussies out there. That wind sail building that you guys got, swag. Love it.
the,
It looks good, man. Love
the
it.
the Sydney Opera House, I believe, is what that one's called.
They showed it a lot and it looked nice, guys. If that's what you got, if that's the crowning place there, because listen, I'm telling you, I saw a bunch of it and I saw different angles and I got a lot of different examples of what the structure is supposed to look like because of these quick cuts or whatever we got.
True.
Very nice. I like it.
There you go. Chase appreciating the architecture of one of the most iconic buildings on the planet. All right. Well, yes, we are talking, of course, about UFC 325, Volkanovski versus Lopes 2, which took place at the Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney, Australia. Before getting into the actual fights, the only other last thing fight related that I had, because we didn't get to talk about this on any other one of our together broadcasts, Chase, we should probably make mention of Aaron Toe and his weight miss. I know that this is now a little far removed because it happened a little while ago or whatever, but like it was such a big story in the moment. Good Lord, this guy, Aaron Toe.
Yes, I actually think it is I have to do justice and just break down how exactly it goes down. So this guy gets on the scale, right? And he presumably tells them it's going to be close, get the towels or get the tarp, he gets on the scale, and when you watch it originally, you can't really see what's happening because it's just like him putting his arms down, and then they're like, "What the fuck?" But if you really pay attention, you can see the pressure come off the things, and like, man, he was resting his arms so hard because when they weighed him, he came in at 122.25. For some reason, they did some 2.5s and 7.5s on this one. I don't know what was
True.
going on,
Yeah.
but he weighs in fucking 3 pounds under the limit. They're like, okay, something's up. Put your underwear back on, dude. Like maybe get a pair of shorts or something. Get a shirt. And he gets on the scale. They take away the tarp. This guy weighs at 129.5. And you know what's even more interesting? Somebody pointed this out. If you zoom in, he was lifting his heels off the scale.
I
This
would
the
that
dude.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Yeah, I hadn't seen that at first. I think it was like Davi or one of the big accounts. They posted a picture of that, and they're like, "This motherfucker over here
Yeah.
pulling his heel off the scale as well." He was trying every single thing. He went one step beyond the DC towel trick, which is an interesting feat in and of itself. And the crazier thing also that I found out. So this was against Namsrai Batbayar, the Mongolian. He was going to be making his debut, and Tao was going to be trying to get his contract. Apparently, they're planning on rebooking this fight. So Aaron Toe, with all of this weirdness that you would think would be an instant, like this guy is never going to fight in the UFC ever, since he still technically has not. He was only on Contender Series. Apparently, they're dead set on letting this guy have his shot. So I don't know what the privilege on that one is, but that is what it is.
I kind of find it interesting because in a way though, it's like as a promoter, right? As Dana White, he's looking for people who want to be there, who want to be in the UFC. They want to be the top of the game. I mean, Aaron Toe, he wanted to be there, he wanted to fight. And like truly, like what can you do with somebody like that? Like obviously weight miss, there was some issues. Clearly we see that now that they're going to rebook it kind of deal, but like he wanted to fight so much that he was gonna do anything and everything to get to that cage. So Dana probably like I don't know. Does he respect this, chat? What do you think? I mean,
Well, I mean, you threw it over to Chet. I gotta highlight my dude Michael real quick. The silent assassin coming in saying he did the David Blaine levitation trick on the scale, bro. That is hilarious, my guy. Shout out to you, Michael. Appreciate you, bro.
yeah,
Um,
David
yeah,
Blaine. What a pull right there. Shout out,
but I
Jesus.
mean, I guess that there may be some truth to what you're saying, perhaps, Chase. That it is just about the hunger, the hunger to be there, but also needs to tone down the hunger that he has for actual food coming into fight week.
I think there's also a funnier thing about this story. So Aaron Toe has officially released a statement apologizing for missing weight. Of course, it's not professional of him. I apologize to my opponent. Yada yada yada. Not once mentioned that he tried to cheat. Not once, but twice. He didn't mention that in the apology. He did not go over that. It didn't even happen in his mind. Dana already swiped it under the rug. He's like, "Nah, we got it scruffed, kid. You're gonna come back. You see that tattoo? You got to be in the UFC."
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, if he obviously if fighting doesn't work out for him, maybe he has a career in politics there. I think that if a non-apology like that sounds so in line with just hitting the stumps. So, and with the tattoo, I mean, it's a noticeable thing that people can get behind culturally. So, maybe get some support that way.
I also think, like, at the end of the day, and I'm not even trying to be that way, but like when you see a guy like Aaron Toe, like, he has to be a fighter, right? Again, you can't just that guy can't be behind the McDonald's counter. Like, he has to just be in a sport like this because that's where he's locked into. So Dana's got to have a little leeway because if he sends him off, bro, where's he gonna go? Like,
Well, I
come
mean,
on, let's have a little hope.
I think that in Australia, New Zealand, because it is a cultural thing with the tattoos, and even being on the face, there actually, I believe, is a news broadcaster who has a small one of those now.
Okay, fire.
But I would still like it's what I said about it in the Discord. I said like even with it being a cultural thing and a known cultural thing, I think that for the general public, like even in the area, it still is something that catches you a little off guard. I gotta believe. I mean, it is a full face of tattoos, basically under the jawline, basically. So
I
it's a lot.
I am a big fan of it. I'm not sitting here saying that it's not cool because it is. It's really cool, and I think for a fighter, it is something that like you identify. You see that guy on like a billboard or on a commercial, on a highlight, and you're like, "That's a fighter. That makes sense." That guy looks the part, kind of deal. And I think that is crucial to what we're building here in the UFC. You have to have people that look the part, and/or you're gonna have people that look like fucking slobs, and it's just not great. And Aaron Toe, I know you missed weight, but like clearly with something's going on, and I think we just give him another chance. If the Mongolian wants it, he gets it, guys. Come on.
I'm with it. Yeah, and
I
actually,
feel like
our
I think they have to rebook it. It's the finals of the Road to the UFC, so it's not like they can just
I
scruff
guess it's
it.
yeah, that's a good point. I guess they had 3 weight classes for that. That's interesting. Yeah, and also our cultural representative from Oceania checking in, Lachlan, saying that tattoo is cultural, and in New Zealand it is illegal to judge those sorts of tattoos. So
Fire.
there you go. Yeah, I'm with it too. I think it's fine. I mean, all of that aspect of it has no bearing on the fact that this dude pulled the jack move on the scale. But either way, we will see what happens next go around. He's getting yet another shot after being on the Contender Series now. Like this dude needs to come in here and actually do the damn thing this time.
No, the last thing that I want to mention before we get into the Road to the UFC
Sure.
portion is, can anybody break down how exactly it works? Because Aaron Toe won on the Road to the UFC last time. Uh, how's he on the road to the UFC again? I don't know how this works. I'm pretty sure he won last time, or maybe he got robbed or something. I don't know, but I'm like almost certain the people who have won on the road to the UFC have competed in the road to the UFC again. Can anybody
Well,
clarify this?
that's why I was curious if it was actually that or not, because it might be him going up against another person, an alternate or something. Because I thought they only did 2 weight classes per season, but I could be completely wrong about that. So maybe maybe somebody else who knows more about it will be able to fill us in. And also, if we this go around, at least on Yama, end up watching this season of Road to UFC, maybe we'll figure it out through context clues there.
Hell yeah, but yeah, because there was supposed to be 4 matches on here. Two. Oh no, actually a flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, and then a lightweight. So yeah, 4 of them, I guess, is what it is now. There must be just a lot of talent coming in.
I guess so. Well, let's start talking about some of it because we did get a couple of them. Let's get this thing underway here. Starting off the card as well. This was a good fight to start this card. This was Sulang Rangbo versus Lawrence Louis. This was the Road to UFC bantamweight final. This fight, because of that, and also the other one that we're going to be talking about, had the ability to go into a sudden death fourth round because it's a tournament final, and they still ended up robbing my guy Rangbo. I was very upset about this.
You know, this and I'm going to talk about this initially too. When it came to the picks that we had, I specifically pointed this out. Like last week, we kind of just I picked one, you picked the other one, or you picked one and then I picked the other one. So when it came to these ones, I'm not judging too much off of it. But when it came to this fight, I said, thank God I picked the good one. I picked a really good one. It was a close fight, but I was sitting here thinking, thank God I got a lucky guess because I got the dude who's winning the fight here. And it wasn't, you say it was a robbery. Lawrence was,
Petty theft. Yeah,
yeah. Trust me, we're gonna talk. We will
Sure.
talk about some here in a few, but this one I think split decision, fine. But I thought this was a really good fight to start off. I can't really tell you too much that I remember happening because it was the first fight of the night, and obviously the other road to the UFC kind of matchups do a little more than this. But it was a good performance for Lawrence. I mean, he's going to be in the bantamweight division. It's not like we're expecting too many killers. We got looking out for decision merchants coming out the way. So
Well, I mean, it'd be nice if we could get some actual killers in that division. It certainly needs it. But yeah, no, this was a good fight. I think that the big standout note really was Sulang Rangbo's boxing was just really sharp. I mean, the guy's got definite hands. Louis wanted to wrestle a lot, at least very early in this fight, and through different portions of it, he was very committed to trying to get it to the ground. Not really having a lot of success there because Rangbo was doing his thing. He breaks through the wrestling in the first. Way better striking, even though Louis had some brief moments of hands himself. He had a really nice combo and a jump kick that landed at the end of the first round. So Sulang, to me, it was a pretty easy choice in that first round. I thought. I mean, Louis was controlling a lot, but this goes back to a constant back and forth that we have, and we've talked about many times on the show, where it's like, what are they judging for? Well, what they should be judging for is what is in the goddamn rule book, which is the damage. You should be going off of damage. And if you were doing that, Rangbo was doing his thing. So I mean, like, this really was not too much of a debatable one to me in that regard. That was the next note, is that Sulang Rangbo has really nice striking. The kid is 20 years old. He is a 20-year-old kid with this striking level. I'm like, this is a really impressive dude. Plus, he's also Sumidarchi's cousin. They
nice.
actually said on the broadcast. So, I mean, coming from a fighting family, like, everything was going right as far as that go. Louis had a good second round. That was the thing that I think kind of started to change the tides a little bit, and definitely changed it in the judge's mind. Rangbo, I think, slowed down a little bit. I think his pace was dropping just a little bit at that point. Debatably, Rangbo still won this round off of damage as well, though, in my opinion. I mean, like, I think, again, debatable. I don't think that he did. I think that this was pretty solid. That actually, I think this is the second, because Louis had the third round. That was his bigger one. So I think rounds 1 and 2, I think were Rangbo, and then Louis won that third.
When you break it down, like from a judging, like when I look at two guys who are in the finale of a mixed martial arts competition, and I see one dude who's doing very good on striking, I see one dude who's doing decent striking, but he's also taking him down and holding him down. I think these are the things that weigh. I mean, Sulang Rangbo was fine, but Lawrence Louis was, decent enough on the feet to keep it close, but he was also mixing in other forms of martial arts. And I think that is what's going to steal you a split decision when it comes to this. Unless you're fucking, Nathaniel Wood and you want to go to the split decision every single time and just only box. Like, you got to mix in these things to steal those moments, and I think Sulang Rangbo could have had those, but he
Yeah.
striking only. He's 20
No,
years old though. If he has the striking at that level, fine. You can't really expect him to have the whole package yet, but hopefully he's able to learn from this. Like, split decision, I was this close. All I had to do was either defend one more takedown or trip him myself, something like that. So,
No, you're absolutely right, and that is the big note. Optically, that Louis was doing better, because I mean, like, there were a lot of things that Rangbo could have been mixing in. He could have been doing some low kicks. He'd been kicking it all. I mean, the guy really was just throwing hands the entire fight. So yeah, there were definitely improvements as far as being more well rounded. So I do agree with that aspect of things, and Louis was that. I mean, he certainly was mixing in a lot more of the wrestling. He was trying to change positions a lot better. Like, he had a good control of the cage in the second round, which I think optically is what swung it for him, even though I gave the round to Rangbo personally. Yeah, I mean, Louis ended up winning the third round because of really solid cuddling was basically what it ended up being. I mean, it was a lot of cage control, but I like, again, I bring it back to what Bisping, who, broken clock Bisping over here, but he was exactly right about this. He said, what do the judges prefer, damage or cage work? And I was like, that should be an obvious choice personally, but it is what it is.
Bisping brings up a great point, and I think we had this discussion just a little bit while back. You know how we could get to the bottom of what the judges want? Have them tell us. Have
Right.
them let us know what they are expecting the winner to do, So, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've always liked your idea of having them, a 2 sentence review of the fight and give us their reasoning for the picks that they made. But either way, I had it Rainbow 1 and 2, and then Louis for the third. Again, petty theft, like you said, split decision win for Louis. I'm not mad at it. He's fine. He's definitely worthy of being in the
City
organization.
kickboxer.
Yeah, well, then that too, right? I mean, come on, that you see Eugene Berriman in the corner. It's like there's already a little bit of a chip there, right?
There's your other reason why it was a split decision win. I mean, obviously, we got to rise up city kickboxers because who's Sulang Rangbo from China? So,
Well, he's goddamn Sumadarji's cousin is who he is. He should be able to have his shot too. But I think that Sulang Rangbo will be back. My big takeaway was that I do hope that they bring him back. I think his striking is too good not to let him have another shot at it.
the unfortunate part is, and this is just a reality check for what it is. I mean, 10-4 at the age of 20, you gotta actually navigate your career a little better at this point. Not that you haven't done it up until this point, but you need to lock in. You need to actually win these next two because 10-5 is not good. 12 and
True.
4 is like, okay, he's fine. Whatever. May have taken some early losses. He was 20, but like you can't just keep racking up losses at this point. I know it's a road to the UFC kind of deal, but if we bring you back, or if you come on Contender Series or however you get your way in here, they actually normally do jump these guys right into. I'm thinking of Xiao Long and uh, Guang Li. They jump them right into there. But Sulang Rangbo at 20 years old, it's going to definitely need some favorable matchups. We're going to have to see what happens here.
Yeah, especially considering that we've noticed that the Chinese fighters often have a lot of fights on the record, and I don't know if it's just because they're fighting more often in China and just getting more experience on the local scene, like they just kind of roll them into more fights more often or whatever. But like we'll talk about Yizha coming up here in a little bit. Another guy, I mean, I think he's a little bit older, but not older, but a little bit older than 20, obviously. And you'll see these records, 20 wins and 3 losses, something like that, on some of these guys. And it's like, yeah, you're starting off a little bit on a not the greatest of footing compared to the other people from your country who are trying to pursue the same path. So I do agree with the criticism. I think that he does need to be consistently winning from here on out and mixing in those things that you talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a good one to start. Not too many memorable things happen, but to start the card, I mean, sure.
Yeah. No, I liked it. I thought it was a good fight, and we'll see what happens with Lawrence Louis as he wins the road to UFC. He is the bantamweight winner, so congratulations to him.
Did they get a belt for this? Was that like a
Nah, they ended up getting $25,000 as the win bonus of the tournament, and then they would have, I believe that there was some discrepancy as to whether or not they would have actually gotten a finish bonus on top of the 25,000. But I didn't see a belt. I don't think that
Of
they, well, 'cause they
course
don't,
there would be.
but they don't give belts to Contender Series or to Tough. They give the little statue or whatever. But I don't even remember seeing those. So I
True,
think
I
it's
guess.
your contract is your trophy.
Hell yeah. But either way,
Oh,
good.
actually, and the other thing, the other one little minor note with that was that the quality of the win would influence the monetary amount attached to the contract. So if they got a finish, their entry level contract would have been a higher amount than a decision win.
Okay.
So
Nice.
it didn't matter for Lawrence Louis, but actually, I guess it's gonna matter for this next guy coming up here. This is Kichiro Nakamura versus Sebastian Sisley. This is the road to UFC featherweight final. This was an interesting one, man. I mean, to talk about something that looked like it was going to go exactly one way and then went the complete opposite way at the very last minute.
Yeah, I definitely, when I talked about the first fight and I said I was happy that I picked the guy who was winning, I felt like shit on this one. I was like, what in the world? I picked the worst dude ever. Like, he's getting dominated by Sebastian. Sebastian looked like a fucking seasoned veteran in this fight. He was measured, he was confident, he was doing everything right effectively. And then just on fucking gets caught in the third, and it's crazy because like Nakamura really wasn't doing anything that made you believe like, oh, he can land that, like, oh, if he does that he can do it, he's just not pulling the trigger. He just happened to just lift his fucking knee and this dude's chin was on it. Like it's crazy what like I can't believe this one went this way because I was really giving you props. Like I know again we just kind of coin flipped it, but like I was like, damn, all right, we're 1-1. Fair enough, thinker. We got it. We got evens on it. And then this dude knocks him out. I'm like, oh my fucking God. Like we got Leon fucking Japanese moment. Like Jesus Christ.
For real. That's funny, but yeah, kind of true. I will say that at least with Nakamura, the knees did start kind of coming in a little bit early than I think people are giving credit for with the way that you described it. Like it was optically, it was, yeah, he just lifted his knee and it was just on the level change and there was a connection. But there were two earlier that he did land as well. So at least he was like recognizing that I need to be doing something because this whole fight, I mean, good Lord, this was a very much a spar for a lot of this. And it was a spar on one side. I mean, it was, it was Sisley with the karate stance, not crazy output, but like good movement. Like he was, again, optically, like he was doing all of the right things and making it look like he was winning, even if he wasn't doing all that much. Like he didn't have to do all that much. That's why what I had said, and turned out to be prophetic without me even knowing it. But on the watch along, I had said, if Nakamura is luring him into a false sense of security, then he's doing a damn good job of it. Because in the third round, it looked like Sisley was kind of taking it a little bit easy because he was up so far. It's like, why? I'm not going to go out here and like risk unnecessary damage, but then what happened. So, if that was Nakamura's plan, then what an absolute legend he is of game planning. But I highly, highly doubt that was the case.
Yeah, I want to shout out Hydra's comment here. This fight fucking sucked. It really did. Like I said, this fight, Sebastian was just doing everything and anything. Can you put that one on the
I
screen? I want
certainly
the
can.
yes, thank
Yes.
you. I just want everybody to make sure they see that one. Hydra, shout out you props because you are totally right, dude. Nakamura again for the 46 strikes that he landed. Listen, and it goes. Anything can happen in this sport, and all you need is one kind of deal. It's just that well timed shot. Nakamura, actually, let me. I'm talking in a negative connotation to him, but I want to, and I'm not trying to compare him to anybody instantly, but when it comes to people, there are some fighters who things go wrong the entirety of the fight, and they are able to just pull something out. Lerone Murphy is a good example of Aaron Pico winning, up until he just wasn't, kind of deal.
Sure.
Kamaru Usman, again, you go to, Leon had no redeeming qualities up until one moment kind of deal. I think Nakamura, might just be one of these people that can just make something happen. And there's those type of fighters in the game. And, Quillen Salkid, against Nasrat, I said there was not much that I was saying that he was kind of cooking with. And then kicks him in the fucking head and kills him, kind of deal. So some people just have the ability to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and say Nakamura might have a little more hope if I give him that. If I give him the points there, but boy, was this fight not good for him up until he fucking won.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's Sisley, like again, like he was doing like just enough, but like he was doing just enough, like because he did drop Nakamura in the second round as well. I mean, it was a quick, a quick drop and like back to his feet, and then he also got a quick drop takedown as well. So it was like these are good things. These are certainly enough, like I mean, it really was. But that also goes to the other side of the coin where it's like this can always happen. That's again, I said on the watch along, I'm like, man, this is the exact stuff that makes me love the sport because this dude was down 2 rounds solidly. I mean, like there was no two ways about it. And then all of a sudden, one shot changes the entirety of it. So Sisley, I mean, with all of the good movement and, the style that he has, I mean, there's certainly a future for him there, but let this be a lesson to you as well. Never rest on the laurels. I mean, you got to be in there aware at all times that these kinds of things can happen. Perfect example of exactly how wrong something can go if you are slipping for even a second in those 15 minutes.
You know what because I was going to ask the question about Sebastian. It's because you can't give everybody who had a decent performance into the road to the UFC finals, you can't give all of them another chance in the UFC because what's the fucking point of the tournament? It's the road to the UFC kind of deal. You win, you get in the UFC. Sebastian, do I think he should deserve another shot? I mean, I don't know. But then again, I think about the first fight. I know that dude's 20 years old, but then do we give all these guys another chance? You know, I mean, Sebastian had a really good performance, and then up until one thing that just, put his lights out kind of deal. What do you take away from this thinker is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of a mixed bag. It really depends on how bad they are dead set on being in the UFC. There are a lot of other organizations where they can go and cut their teeth. Someone with Sisley's skill set could probably do very well in a PFL. I mean, like what I saw there is entirely applicable to what you'd be seeing in that organization, and he probably could go out there and do good things over in an organization like that. So, I mean, do you give them all shots again? I mean, I think that you at least give them another chance to try. But it gets to kind of the Torres Finney line, I would say, is where it's like, how many times is too many times? Torres Finney was winning those fights and still needed to do it a bunch of times. So if you're on the losing side, yeah, there is a hard limit, I would say. But it really, I mean, the great thing about the sport as well is that it's a solo sport. So when somebody drops out of a fight or things change on a card, if you are the person to pick up the phone, then you could be skipping the line of all of the tournament stuff as well. You have your shot in that way. There's a lot of different ways to get your foot in the door. You just have to make it count when you have the shot.
I think Hydra brings up a great point, and I think I'm about to drop a gem of Aussie lore, and I could be wrong, but correct me when I get
Sure.
there. But either way, it wasn't like Sebastian winning in an entertaining or impressive way up until being KO'd, no second chance. And when you say that, it's like I instantly said, yeah, I guess he's no Georgie Mangos, whatever that guy's name was, right? George's Mangos. He's no him. He's no I need to see that guy again kind of deal. Like there's no reason for somebody to go leaving this fight saying, damn, I gotta see Sebastian again, man. That's some bullshit. But like Georgie Mangos, though, that's some bullshit. That dude held him down. The number one guy in that he took on the number one Australian and held him down that entire fight. I need to see Georgie Mangos against somebody who's willing to fight. Sebastian Saleh, I don't think I need that,
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, again, there are multiple factors. Lachlan saying that they want an Aussie featherweight. It's like, how much do you really put into that? I mean, we'll talk about the main event. People saying that they want a Mexican champion. It's like, how much does that play a factor in keeping someone around? And not obviously different circumstances there, but like if that was the case, like if it was a Mexican dude, like does that matter as much? Like, there's a lot of different things that go into the equation. I think that really it's about like seeing what the full potential of the fighter is. We saw a lot of what you're going to get out of Sisley in this fight. And especially also like when he was not even really pushed that hard, this is when this happened. So that's kind of concerning as well. But like, I think that would be, I guess, my ultimate answer to the question is like where I lie on all this stuff is that when you have seen everything that you're going to get out of the fighter, does that inspire you to want to keep them in the organization or not? That I think is where I would land. It's like if you see everything that you need to see out of Sisley in this fight, then okay, I understand that you don't want to keep him, whatever, that makes sense. But like if you're like there's a lingering thought that maybe there's a better performance in him, I would say give him the shot to at least have that better performance. If he doesn't do it in another go of it, then yeah, you can part ways on that.
Absolutely, I agree.
So, but yeah, I mean, either way, shout out to Kichiro Nakamura for being the UFC featherweight finalist. How about wanting some Japanese representation? I mean, we've got a good amount of Japanese fighters now. We're getting more of them all the time, but like, everybody's saying that, oh, we want more Australians. We got plenty of Australians too. So I think that we should just be happy for Japan, even if it happened the way that it happened.
Absolutely.
And again, one last shout out to Hydra because this comment made me laugh. I said this could have just been his game plan going in and lulling him into a false sense of security for the entire time. And Hydra said, if that was the plan, then never do that again.
True. Yeah, I bet he will not be doing that again. Yes.
Yeah, hopefully not. We'll see if he'll actually be able to win either way again. But regardless, he won that one. So moving on to the next one here. This was somewhat of an interesting one, I would say. This is Sung Wook Kim versus Dom Marfan. This is the Road to UFC lightweight final. Excuse me.
I was really upset that I picked Kim on this one. Not that he did bad or anything, but when I saw Dom, excuse me, when I saw Dom Marfan perform, like instantly, I knew like this guy's got it. Like this guy is a good fucking fighter. He not only is a good fighter, but he has good instincts on when to take the fight to a different level. Like it's not just stand and strike with the striker. I'm gonna take him down, and we'll figure shit out from there. But Dom Marfan gave me a lot of hope. This is a guy who has 2 losses on his professional record, both of them being Quill and Salkid. I know that's crazy to think that I'm putting a lot of stock in him, but from what I saw in this fight, the Street Buddha actually looks like a credentialed fucking athlete when it comes to this shit. He ain't no street prophet. This guy is good. I'm telling you, I like him.
Well, I think that my question for you specifically, Chase, is does this change any of your perception of Korean grappling and wrestling? Because I know that you in the past have said, oh, Korea is on the come up.
Japanese,
Korean. Oh, well, oh,
Japanese
no,
grappling.
you've said that about Japanese, you're saying.
Yes,
I thought that you'd applied that to
Korean
Korea as
strikers.
okay. All right. Okay, fair enough. Then I apologize. I thought that you had been applying that to both countries
Hmm.
because what I was leading up to with that is that this what I liked about Dom Marfan in this fight was that he really did show that he can hang when it comes to getting out of sticky situations with that because this was a very clinch heavy first round. I think that Kim may have edged the first round even with the control. Even I mean, but like yeah, a lot of people are saying, oh, when Marfan came back with the striking, was able to navigate all that. I'm like, cool. I mean, that's how you should be looking at it. I'm looking at it from the way that the judges were looking at it, perhaps with that, which is not how you should be looking at it. But I'm just saying that like there was a lot of control that Dom Marfan had to navigate out of, and he definitely was better with his hands. So good deal on all of that. I thought it was an impressive showing to be like, okay, if I'm going to deal with a wrestler like this who's going to be all over me, I have the tools to get out of all of that, and then I can get the hands going as well. So it really was a well-rounded performance with that being the case.
I really think this guy he's kind of got aura. I mean, when you see him in the cage, he kind of listen. I'm not saying he does look like him. With the shaved head, he looks like Edgar Shirez. I don't know if I'm the only one who says he looked just like him. He fights just like him too, a little bit. Like it's kind of crazy. And then the name, Dom Marfan. Like this is something you can market that. The Street Buddha, Dom Marfan. It's kind of like this is this is this is what stories are made of, kind of deal. This is what we're gonna witness a new story becoming right here, and I think they're gonna have the idea that he's coming up through the rankings. Why is he gonna face Quillen eventually? He's already lost to him twice. Well, it's because it's 15 years later, or whatever you want to say. But I don't know. I'm not saying he'll get to that point, but there's things that you can make with something like this. This is a story. Him winning unanimous decision. I mean, that's just icing on the cake. You didn't have to fucking smudge the numbers for him. He just came in here and did his fucking thing. So I really liked this performance. I thought he did everything so well. Like I'm telling you, the times where there was never a point where I was sitting here saying, dude, like, come on, like, do this. You got to get back to that. You got to do that. Like, he was always changing it up in the way that I'm like, I can't say anything about it. I'm applauding the way that you've taken the fight. You have a good game plan, you have a good set of skills, you're utilizing them correctly, and it wasn't like an easy fight. I mean, I was rooting for Kim because this is the dude that I picked, and I had a lot of hopes for him. But Dom Marfan really did his work here, and I really liked this.
Well, yeah, I think that that's kind of what my note would be is that Kim really had a very definitive game plan. He really only wanted to wrestle. So I might need to see a little bit more opposition, a little bit more well rounded opposition to fully be all in on Marfan. But I mean, what we saw was definitely enough in this fight for sure to be a fan. A couple things I did want to note on his side was that one thing I loved that he was doing, and I wish more people would do it. I think we've probably talked about this at some point in the past. The elbows off the clinch break. He was throwing. He threw a lot of nice elbows. Don Marfan was really good with his elbow striking. I really enjoyed that in general. But whenever he was getting out of a clinch situation, when there was a little bit of distance and he was still close enough to get it, he would throw that elbow, and he was connecting with a couple of them. I'm like, this should just be standard operating procedure for a lot of these fighters, especially if you're going to be clinched up. Like, how many times could Mario Bautista be taking elbows to the face? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of instances where you have that opportunity and people just don't have the instinct to do it. Marfan did. So I was like, good deal there. The criticism that I did have of Marfan was that it looked like he did start to gas a little bit in the third, but he did put out enough to continue to take that round. So it wasn't a major deal in this fight. These are just the things going forward that I'm going to be a little bit vigilant of with him. But overall, a good enough base and solid performance to get him where he needs to be. And I'm looking forward to the next one. 30-27s across the board. Nothing wrong with that.
The thing that I would say, and you can be fans of people for different reasons. I'm not going to sit here and say that this dude has, the skill set to go on and be a world class champion, but I will because at the end of the day, I think this is probably as finished of a project as you're gonna get for a fighter. Like he looks pretty complete already. I mean, there's
Mhm.
not really much that I would say, okay, he needs to work on this. I mean, obviously we got to get another fighter to put him in the situation that I'm gonna have to see him work out of. But like he passed all the check marks for me as of right now. Am I going to say he's going to get better and become some world killer? No, he's already lost to Quillen, and that was, when Quillen was just coming up, kind of deal. I mean, at now he'd probably smoke him, kind of do. Who knows? But I, I think this is a good, solid prospect. It's not necessarily your golden goose, but he will fill out the roster. I really like that for him.
Yeah, yeah, me too. This was definitely a solid, fine win for the Street Buddha. Yeah, Kim back to the. I mean, and then like going back to the previous conversation that we just had, what I saw out of Sangwoo Kim, was a very definitive game plan that he did not want to break from. Did not actually put out enough offense on his own. I mean, like, does that warrant another go around? It's like if I only see this one thing and I feel like that's all I'm gonna get, like what you're saying that Mar Fam is a complete package or whatever. Like, is that the complete package of Kim? Because if it is, then yeah, I don't need to see another version of that, another go around of that. So I guess that kind of just adds on to like my thought process there. Like I would need to know if that's all that you're going to be getting out of him. And if it is, then yeah, then that, I don't think that we really need to see him again.
Yeah, and basing off again, his nickname is the Street Buddha. I'm going to assume he will be in a war and come out on top. Obviously we have to see him do it, but as of right now, complete as it is, I would say the Street Buddha is going to come out on top, and I'm going to put some stock into him right here, right now.
All right, I like it. Well, yes, congratulations to Dom Mar Fam for his Road to UFC lightweight final victory here. And just to reiterate and be clear, I do know that Japan and Korea are two different places. Okay.
I believe you, thinker. I believe you. It's okay. Common mistake.
All right. Well, either way, let's go to the final early prelim here. This is Can Ofly versus Yija. If you didn't think that the first fight was a robbery, this one I think was a little bit closer to it, man. I thought Yija did pretty good in this fight. A possible 10-8 round in the second, and Khan Ofly ends up getting his hand raised. This seemed a little bit strange to me.
This one, listen, I watched the fight, and I'm very honest when I can tell you that the guy that I'm rooting for has lost the fight. I picked Khan, and brother, I don't think he won a single fucking moment of this fight. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. Like there was not one time where I said, "Damn, okay, Khan got him with that one. He stole the round with that one." No, no, he got beat up pretty bad. I mean, I genuinely don't see how you win this fight or how you score it for him, but they did. One of them scored a draw. I mean, Aussie bias. I don't know, man. It's
They
crazy.
they were really going off of the control for this one. It's the only thing that you could possibly say because I mean, Ofly, they were saying it on commentary, and they're not wrong. Con Ofly, we saw this on the Contender Series. Ofly, his wrestling is good. He is a solid tactician in the wrestling department. That being said, I mean, there was just not enough offensive action, even with the wrestling, to consider it over the damage that Yija was landing because his hands are so nice and he was on the hunt so much of this fight. I mean, he gets a little bit I say like Conofley gets a little bit reckless with the wrestling sometimes, but he's able to get himself out of sticky situations with that. Like, he's that good at that. But again, that does not then equal offense. It's like, it's the same basic argument of like what I call Felicia Spencer syndrome, where it's like, yeah, you can take a whole lot of shots, but if you're not putting the offense out behind it, then being a tough punching bag does not win you rounds. I would say that that's applicable here. Being a very high level wrestler does not equal winning of rounds when you are taking as much damage as he was taking, especially also getting dropped in that first round as well, right? Wasn't that the, yeah,
I think it was the second round he dropped
well,
him.
I mean, he definitely did in the second round, but it was more of a stunner shot, I would say. He kind of like went back. They were calling it a drop in the first round. It really wasn't like full on drop, but I mean, he got stunned. He kind of stunned Yija as well, so it was like you can say that evened it out a little bit on that, but like. I mean, just overall, man, again, if this sport is optics, when the dude is getting his ass kicked. And this is what was happening to Con Offley. He was on the retreat for a very large amount of this fight.
Well, you heard it in the chat. Sal Tomato was definitely one of the judges. So What else
Yep.
can you say? I mean, listen, I can't tell you a redeeming quality going forward that Khan has after this performance because, like, that's really what it comes down to. It's like, okay, all right, he won. You know, think shit happens. You know, we've seen robberies before. But going forward, it's like, brother, you're cooked. Like you're so not good. I mean, if you think going up after Yiza is a possibility for beating him, that's not good because the level of Yiza is able to just destroy you on the feet apparently. So going up is obviously not a fucking option, and you barely, you know, not barely, but obviously you didn't even beat him to a lot of people. So fighting up doesn't even make sense. But who is even like I don't know who's even a good matchup. I mean, it just I don't know where his skill set lies amongst the division, and I don't know who would even put up a decent performance for him to like actually succeed against. You know, like it's this one was really just crazy to me because I'm sitting here watching. I'm like, all right, shout out Thinker. He picked a good pick. I thought Khan was gonna have a comeback, and people were telling me. By the way, people said 10-8 for the second round. We've seen worse rounds, I would say.
Oh yeah.
10-8 is not, you know.
No, well, I mean, like, again, that just goes to like where your definition of the 10-8 lies, because
Yeah.
I agree. Like, I mean, yeah, this was not like such a definitive ass whipping in the second round I'm upset that it wasn't a 10-8. Like, I really what I thought was going to be that it was going to be a 10-9 round and that Yisha was going to win rounds 2 and 3, and then that would have been the way because first round was close enough that if you wanted to say the stunner shots on both sides cancel each other out, I would have been like, fine, perfect, that's all good. This seemed to be a very clear cut way that this was going to trend. And I was like, this all is going to make perfect sense in the end. And then it just didn't. So I think a lot of people are maybe attributing the 10-8 after the fact a little bit more strongly because it's like, bro, not only did this not go the right way, but there's a case for a 10-8. How the hell did this happen?
I question it all the time. Like these are scorecards of people who did not watch the fight. You know, like what were they doing while the fight was on? Did they have a pre-written scorecard or something? Because there's just no way that Kano Fly won this fight.
Yeah, no, and I did have it in the notes, just as you said. Sal D'Amato strikes again. So,
Yeah,
I wanted to shout out to, I believe it was Lachlan in the chat during the watch along, saying that, don't blame it on us in Australia because it's like, oh, hometown bias. Don't blame it on us. This is Sal D'Amato. He's everywhere, and I'm like, that is part of the problem. Why is he everywhere? Why are all these guys like? We need more diverse pool of judges. Like I say this a lot. This came up in the Atlantic City video a while back that I did, where it's like, if you really want to get better scoring, get better refereeing, there needs to be a larger pool of people and better training across the board. But you get what you get, I guess.
100%. Yeah, I don't get how these people keep getting away with it, but I'm sure there's people out there who had Kano Fly and are very happy that he won. Other than that, I don't think it was anything worth a performance to even talk about much more.
True. The only other thing I did want to mention was that there was one moment that seemed to have gone under the radar for a lot of people, but I did think that it was worth mentioning. Yija, I believe it was the second round, I want to say. It was during one of the many parts where Ofly was on the retreat. He had kind of gone to the ground for a moment, and it looked to me like Yija landed an illegal knee
Oh,
slash
he did.
shin. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm glad that you picked up on that because Ofly was scrambling at one point and that connected, and neither commentary nor the referee said anything about it. So I at least wanted to like put that out there that there was a little bit of questionable element with that part. So Yisha's not 100% in the right for that, but I like I said, I just wanted to at least have an acknowledgement of it because I don't think that I heard it from anywhere else.
I'm glad you actually brought that up because I definitely saw that and we all jumped like, yo, that might have been illegal. No replay, no comment, nothing. Yeah, they just must have been one of the angles that the commentary couldn't see it, and we had one of those rare cases where it was one of the new referees. Just I don't know
Yeah.
because we had a couple of those.
True. Well, yeah, referees that are like localized to
Yeah,
Oceania, I guess. But either way, that was my last little note on this. Not very happy about how this one went down for Yija, but it is what it is. And, shout out to Con Offley. I guess you live to fight another day.
yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, before we get into the prelims proper, one more shout out to the chat. Hydra, appreciate you, bro. Again, Lachlan is here. We had John Dong checking in earlier as well. So just wanted to make sure that everybody was getting their shout out before we get into this next fight, which is, of course, Jonathan McAuliffe versus Oban Elliott. what I said about this one, and maybe you'll disagree. I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts on this, but Mikhailov looked very off in this fight until he ended up winning the damn thing. I mean, like this was an odd performance. He looked very slow. He looked like he was moving without confidence. Like it just. I mean, I don't know him well enough to know like if he was having an off night or what the circumstances were there. But commentary had said he looked like he was out of his rhythm, and I was like, if you want to say that that's how you want to phrase it, then fine. But like to me, it looked like he just was kind of out of his element. And it could, I will give credit to Oban Elliott because he did come out aggressive. And I'm always the guy who says start strong and be first and all of those kinds of things. So credit to him if that's the case. But either way, it just seemed like something was off with Mikhailov. Obviously ended up winning the fight either way, but still, that was my perception.
This one, yeah, I definitely agree with you. It did not look good to start off. Oban Elliott came out in rare form. I mean, he was really ready to put some hands on Jonathan Mikhailov. And I think what is to note specifically is the only thing that I think I can say otherwise is that Jonathan Mikhailov has always stuck out to me as somebody that I need to keep an eye on. I can't tell you what it is, but after seeing this, I mean, hopefully people are starting to realize what I'm talking about. Like this guy, again, I talked about it just a little bit ago. Sometimes the fight does not go someone's way. This happens occasionally. It takes a really good fighter to be able to overcome adversity and actually provide a winning method and not just, there's overcoming adversity and not losing badly, then there's overcoming adversity and actually winning the fight. And then there's finishing your opponent after, a decent amount of adversity. I think Mikhailov showed that he's willing to go after it a little bit, even if it's a striker that he's outmatched against. I mean, he does have decent jujitsu, and if he gets you down, anything's possible. I would like to note that I don't know if anybody in the chat knows this as well. Lachlan, Mikhailov fights like a goofball. If you did not know, we are big fans of goofball tactics. These guys are very, very good. So,
True.
Oban Elliott, though, he suffered a broken something in his face, something in his eye is jacked up. So he had to go get surgery after one of these punches. He says he doesn't remember anything after he got punched in the eye or something.
Huh.
So
Okay.
interesting. So there was an injury suffered in the moment, is what I'm telling you. But I don't know if that's going to have any lasting effect. It sounded pretty serious. I don't know if anybody takes anything into account about Mikhailov finishing a dude with a broken face. Like I don't know. But from my opinion, Mikhailov W.
But fair. Yeah, I mean that. Well, I guess we'll have to see what the actual reality of that injury is. There are a couple injuries on this card we'll be talking about coming up. But really, I mean, the ultimate takeaway to me is really more on the other side. Oban Elliott either needs to learn some ground game or never ever wrestle. He is very bad on the ground, and it has been proven now multiple times. Because really, what I saw in this fight was a great strong start for Oban Elliott. I liked the way that he was attacking the with the pressure. He was keeping it on. His combos looked like they were there as well. Like he was really bringing the fight to Mikhailov for a lot of this. And then it was really just a time where Elliott himself drags the fight to the ground, and he ends up, this Mikhailov ends up reversing and taking over. I mean, this was like a very simple set of sequences because it's like Oban decides to go for the wrestling, even though he has none. And this was the fundamental mistake kind of thing. Mikhailov, after taking all of the pressure and damage, just drags Oban down and chokes him unconscious. That really was as simple as it was after all of the striking. So it's like, bro, if you cannot make it happen on the ground, you initiated the clinch that started it, my guy. You got to be able to have the actions behind that to make the clinch situation worth. What would be the point of doing that if you don't?
Yeah, and let's actually give a shout out to people who actually can finish a choke, Like I know
True.
Oban Elliott, listen, Oban Elliott is not, the craziest guy ever when it comes to jujitsu, but let's talk about how many times we've seen people with fully locked in chokes, even on this card alone. This guy finished one, and it's starting to become a rarity because jujitsu is becoming some sort of, fairy tale. Like there's not that many good jujitsu guys anymore. The ones that come over to MMA, these jujitsu specimens, they get destroyed instantly in their debut. On the ones that don't, to be fair, are the women, but we'll see as their careers continue to go on. But as of right now, Michaela finishing a sub, I'll give it to him. Oban is not a slouch, I mean, this is a dude who went on a win streak in the UFC. So shout out McAuliffe.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. And talk about finishing a choke. I mean, I don't know if you saw Oban Elliott's legs twitching at the end of that once he was out. So, I mean, this was definitely a full-on finish choke if there ever was one. And it was a little unnerving to see his legs going like that, but that's what happens when you go out. So, good deal.
So CTE, of course, broken orbital wall and floor. I don't know what the floor part is, but Oban broke his orbital and was probably out on his feet when his back was taken. Didn't remember anything after getting dropped. Listen, it happens. I will also say this, and I know this is not the correct way to think, but Oban, he's the Welsh gangster, right? This dude has he has a name and he has a reputation. Him not tapping, you kept it. You're still the Welsh gangster to me, buddy. If you would have tapped, it's like, oh, now I got to come on here and talk about how you tapped out. Like he went to sleep. No tap, go to sleep. I guess it's not what I would love to see, but you kept a good image in my mind. I guess
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
how it worked.
if you're as dead to rights as that one was, because that was a clean as RNC as you're going to see, then yeah, I mean, I guess that there is some little points of pride to just going to sleep as opposed to tapping. I suppose if you look at it that way, but um, either way, I mean, this really I can't get. I just that's the biggest thing. I cannot get over the fact that Oban Elliott basically did this to himself. I mean, like in broad terms, if he had just kept this on the feet, which he was having so much success on the feet. The other thing that I wanted to mention about Oban Elliott was that his movement was really good. And since McAuliffe was kind of moving a little bit slower, a little bit more plodding, he really could have kept this fight exactly as he had been because rounds 1 and 2 were very similar. He was doing all of the things correctly and then getting out of the way of a lot of the shots that McAuliffe was throwing back, save for some of the times where McAuliffe had him in the tie clinch, which I did like. I liked his knees, through a couple of those, like where he was clinched up like that. I thought that was fine. But I mean, other than that, like there was, like there was no reason for this sequence to have been initiated in the first place. Oban Elliott needs to figure something out with that.
I'm just excited, man. I think Jonathan McAuliffe, he ended back on the watch this list. I'm gonna have to go ahead and make sure you guys know that Jonathan McAuliffe for 2026 is somebody to watch out for. And I knew this going into the year. Just make sure everybody knows this.
No, fair enough. I mean, yeah, your list is the list for a reason. We do know that to be the truth. So
Hell yeah.
good deal. Yeah, great win in the end, I guess, for Jonathan McAuliffe. Oban Elliott back to the drawing board, and hopefully on that drawing board is some wrestling training.
No, it's just gonna be a picture of like a rubber ducky or something. I don't know.
Well, Tom Aspinall has a couple of those. Maybe you can borrow one of them.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next fight here. Of course, shout out to Nav and also CTE. I don't think I got those guys in there before.
Oh
But
yeah.
next up here is Jacob Malkoun versus Torres Finney. This was a spectacle of a fight. Torres Finney apparently had a knee injury, either a ligament or a meniscus or something along those lines. I think in the end, it turned out it was his LCL was what finally ended up being the big problem as the fight was going on. But this fight, to me, really was more so a lack on Jacob Malkoun's side. I mean, you had a fighter who was so compromised. Torres Finney comes into this fight with a bum knee. Malkoun has him hurt multiple times, nearly finished multiple times. Finney makes it to the final horn. How did Malkoun let this happen?
You know, I'm not really worried about that because Jacob Malkoun is not somebody that I would, obviously he was having a great performance on the feet. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But when it comes to finishing people, it's not like, oh my God, he's some killer on the feet. How did he not finish Torres Finney? Torres Finney looked awful. And even before the injury that happened in the first round, he looked very, very slow. He did not look like he was going to be able to keep up with Jacob Malkoun. And I actually am very disappointed in all of the Aussies and everybody out there because they must be rubbing their hands when they saw this fight because they must know Jacob Malkoun is some fucking top level boxer. Apparently, I didn't fucking know this because this dude has quick ass hands. He has a very good jab, and Torres Finney, as we all know, has no striking. So how did nobody spot this one out? I mean, obviously we're all rooting for Torres Finney because he's fucking. He was 11-0 at the time. He's the contender series golden boy, the Make a Wish kid, whatever you want to say. But brother, Jacob Malkoun whooped on him very, very easily, and I just can't believe it. I mean, I can because I know Torres Finney is not very good, but like Jacob Malkoun looked like He looked like Kelvin Gastelum or something out here, and I know that's not the craziest thing, but, like, that's the only person that I can think of with, like, that sort of physique with that fast of hands kinda deal. Like, it was genuinely pretty impressive.
Well, I mean, I want to well, two things. Okay, one, I think from what I understand, Torres Finney had a compromised knee going into this fight. Now, that doesn't matter. I mean, you take you take the fight, that whatever. But I do at least want to have that as a minor caveat, is that he injured the knee further in the fight, but I think he came in compromised. Whatever. Again, throw that out the window. It's just a point to be made. Really, the other point that I wanted to make was that I thought in the third round, now first two rounds definitely, Malkoun was taking the fight to him, like, all day. But I thought that Torres Finney had a couple of moments of striking that actually looked somewhat decent. Like, I was like, okay, I mean, maybe he's not as one dimensional, but because of the knee, he couldn't get any of it going. I mean, I think I'm being very generous in the big picture with all of this. And it's, I mean, really not even out of any kind of real like affinity to Torres Finney. I mean, him losing is not something that would really bother me all that much. I just wanted to kind of mention it because, again, I think that my perception is, if you, like you're saying, oh, Malkoun has all these hands. He's this guy with really good striking. Sure, but the thing is, it's like if you have you are a UFC level fighter. If you have a compromised opponent who is, to me at least, compromised from the very beginning, as to how I understand it to be. If he is compromised from the beginning, you would basically have a blank canvas. Go out there and finish the fight. He could have finished this in the first round. Then I would have been
No,
like, oh, okay, hey, come on, that's no more discussion needed.
he definitely could have finished it in the first and second. The third, he let Torres Finney have too big of moments where it's like just two big shots that landed, but that's all he was needed to actually believe, like, oh wow, Torres Finney has a little bit of heart here. But like he could have finished this so easily because he was giving Torres Finney the time to reset. Like, let me step back, let me think about what's going on. Let me just get in his face and just bust him up. You were doing it every single time. Like, listen, like I said, I'm not the one that's going to have too much of a problem with it because I'm not sitting here thinking Jacob Malkoun is some world beater. This dude's 9-3. He had a good performance against Torres Finney, and he put the hands on him and punched him in the face a lot. Everybody had a good time watching it. I'm very, very positive about that. That going forward, doesn't really do too much. Again, I get Torres Finney was injured, and I do a compromised opponent is something that you can easily take advantage of. I get it. Torres Finney, though, being injured, I think, I don't know. I feel like this is good for him. Obviously taking a loss, it's never good, but like you need a good example of what the real world happens. You went on the Contender Series, you got three opportunities, you finally get into the UFC. Now you're injured. Now what are we going to see from you? Now we got to get the climb back. Is Torres Finney going to actually understand, that not everything's granted, not everything's the easy way kind of deal. Like, you're going to have to earn it sometimes. You may be compromised. You may be this. A lot of people who go to the higher level in the sport, they take fights where they're compromised, or they're not. They don't take them while they are, but eventually they do get compromised in the process, and they still go on to take these fights. And that's where the magic happens. You got to be able to push yourself and see where the limits are, kind of deal. Torres Finney, I think, will come back from this bigger and better, with the idea that, like, I performed on a fucking, to me it looked like he tore his fucking Achilles. Like, coming from basketball, as soon as you see the tendon shoot up, it's like that's it. Like, you're cooked. Like, your leg doesn't even work anymore after that. Torres Finney fought a whole fight on a compromised right leg, couldn't throw any power off of it, I'm positive. And, it wasn't, 30-26 on two judges, it is what it is. But, like, again, hang your hat on. I didn't get finished, and I was dead to rights, kind of deal. So
Well, yeah, and that's why it's going to be interesting to see how he does interpret all of this, because it's like, having the knee as the thing that you can fall back on as to like why everything went sideways in this one fight. Does he actually learn from all of this is, I guess, the question. So we'll find out about that. Two real quick points just to illustrate the Malkoun side. Again, I can't let this go because I'm saying, as a guy on the other side of this thing, having a compromised fighter, it like should have been the way to, to your easy road to victory here. Malkoun had Finney dead to rights with 30 seconds left in the first round and decided to wrestle instead of strike. I was like, bro, you're doing that against Torres Finney, the guy who is known for his wrestling, even compromise. He's going to be able to get out of these situations. I was like, fight IQ problems abounding over here. And then in the second round, again, Malkoun wrestles when he could have finished the thing with ground and pound. I'm just saying, fight IQ really could have made this, because like the way that you're looking at Jacob Malkoun could have been a completely different perception. Now, I don't think that it necessarily would have been with all these circumstances, but to someone who's a little bit more of a casual observer, man, he went out there and he annihilated that guy. You know, even if they don't know Torres Finney's background or whatever, and he is a little bit of a shorter guy, all those things, whatever. He got an annihilation. That could have been his own story. This is the same man who knocked a dude out with his hip. You know, he could be having all kinds of stories going on. This could be, the new Cody Brundage in a good way. You know, the guy just comes out here and has all these weird wins. It's a great thing. But instead, he ends up with these low fight IQ moments and ends up going to decision.
Yeah, I don't think this one really did too much for me. Again, it was just we knew Torres Finney was not very good. You know, it was a matter of time of who was going to show us that. And the fact that being Jacob Malkoun, it's as good as it gets, because if it would have been Robert Valentine, you could be like, oh, that dude, he, in my opinion, that's a good fighter. He can do this, he can do that. When it comes to Jacob Malkoun, this is a guy that nobody in the history of betting has ever said this guy is the guy you should put money on. And they did, and he won. So 30-26. Whoever knew that this was possible, shout out you. Surprise, surprise, it did not leak that Torres Finney was compromised. I don't know how this didn't get out, because I was surely betting.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely that. And also DC apparently knew, because they had talked about that on commentary. And he said, oh, the knee, he can still wrestle, guys. He's going to be able to use it, all this and that. Well, you saw how that went. So
Yeah.
obviously, note to Alex Hernandez's camp. This is how you keep the secret,
True.
Hernandez having to go out there and make a statement on his behalf regarding all of that weirdness. So any which way, this is what it is. Malkoun gets the victory, as you said. We can leave it at that, I suppose.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, next up, the aforementioned Cody Brundage was fighting Cam Rouston. What I said about this, man, Cody Brundage, when he lets his hands go, he actually lands some nice flurries, but he just did not do that enough and ended up with Rouston able to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah, when I'm looking at this right now, I actually can't remember how this one ended too much. Obviously, it ended in a finish, but like all that I can remember from this matchup is that Cody Brundage has reminded me once again that no matter the talk of him being a wrestler, now how many times you show a clip of him slamming Zachary Reese, this guy at heart is a brawler. I mean, when it comes down to it, he just swings his hands from as far as he can away, and he's just trying to take somebody's head off. And now it never happens. It never goes right for him. The thing that I want to know is, when this fight started, I don't know if you ever pay attention to the tickers at the bottom. It'll tell you like, oh, as a dog, that this person has won this many. As a favorite, they've won this many. As a UFC dog, Cody Brundage is 3-5-1 and 1 no contest. Isn't that, and obviously 3-6-1 and 1 now, but like
Right.
he just, it is crazy when you spell it out like that. Like, Jesus Christ, he genuinely is a special type of fighter. And when I say special, I don't know if I mean very, very good kind of deal.
Right. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think I had attributed some of the knees in the clinch to our guy earlier, to McAuliffe. I think I was thinking of Cam Rouston. He actually had some nice knees in the clinch here. But yeah, I mean, Cody, like, all like what you said, definitely the wrestling was not there. I mean, that should have been. I mean, like at a certain point, it should have been what he went to, because I mean, like, he basically just got wore down. It was what it seemed like. I mean, he started off with these really nice big strings and then would just reset back to neutral. I think that Dean Thomas actually said it right. He was like, Brundage is fighting in moments. And I was like, that's a nice turn of phrase that's actually very applicable here. Like, he would go in with some really good aggression and then just fall back into a neutral state and just let Cam reset himself, get himself to where he wanted to be. And then Cam ends up getting that switch knee, which lands. Doesn't really have an action plan, Cody Brundage, for the ground game. Well, actually, no, I mean, reverse that. Cam Rouston lands the switch knee and doesn't really have an action plan for himself on the ground, but Brundage is just done by them. So it's like, okay, if you got the guy in armadillo defense, shout out to CTE for that phrase. I mean, then just go and win the fight, which is exactly what he did. So, I mean, this was not a great showing for Brundage. Basically seemed like he shut down Anthony Smith style. That's another thing that came up on the watch along. Shout out to Cam Rouston for making that happen, but I really think that this was a winnable fight for Cody Brundage, who just seemed unwilling to go out and actually win this fight.
I don't know if I would say this was a winnable fight for Cody. Once I saw and remembered how Cody fights, I mean, Cam Rowson is way too clean, and I'm starting to respect his level of striking. He does have something good in his bag, and Cody Brundage was just not the type of dude. Yeah, he was the type of wild card that, like, oh, he might be able to land something and it gets crazy, or he might be able to make some sort of madness happen for this dude. But it just wasn't. And 9 times out of 10, Cody Brundage is probably going to lose by KO. So Cam Rowston, good performance. The only thing that I would note, and I think this is specific to what we have been talking about more recently, Cam Rowston in his post-fight speech, I talked a little bit about John Silva and Arnold Allen. Cam Rowston, he fits the build. I would say he fits it more than John Silva, but again, who am I to say about this? Cam Rowston, though, I have no doubt. I have no questions. If he came out and said, what John Silva did, I'd be like, all right, I get it. I get it. But, I don't know. It was a funny post fight speech and, good times.
Yeah, he said, if you are in the middleweight division, the things you need to know if you're coming down to fight me are you got to have your passport, no foreign fruits or vegetables, and choose the way you want to lose. And I was like, okay, I mean, he's trying to cut a promo here. And I don't know if it necessarily came out with the level of intensity or level of, it was kind of in the middle of not being super impactful and also being kind of cringe, but in a funny way. It was fine. The one thing that stood out to me in his Octagon interview was him saying a lot of people wouldn't take this fight, and I was like, bro, who is ducking Cam Rouston for real though? Like, I was like, okay, if you say so. I don't know. I mean, like, if you're saying that you don't think that this was a winnable fight for Cody Brundage, then I am curious as to who he would be able to beat. I mean, a guy like Cam Rouston, I mean, he is 14-3. It's not like he's super new, but he's newer to the organization. I mean, like, I would have thought that this would have been one that, like, I chose him to win for a reason. I thought that, like, he had a skill set and ability set that was going to be matching well with this. I think that also, like, to that end, I think Cody Brundage might be a little bit of a victim of the circumstances, whether they are his fault or not, of all of the weird fluky shit that he has gone through in his fights, where it's like, if you know that Cody Brundage has all these weird fight endings and all this crazy stuff happening, this is what happens when that does not happen. And that, I think, kind of maybe clouds the judgment of people like myself, perhaps. I'll allow for that.
Yeah, it was a clean performance from Cam. Like I said, Cody Brundage, he just sits back on the cage and puts his back to it. So what else is Cam going to do but look fucking phenomenal on the feet as a striker? So
Yeah, that's really the big takeaway to me. I mean, like, you can't be out there taking pictures, especially also when you are doing good when you actually throw. That's going to be a note that's going to come up a couple of times going forward here, is like, go out. If you are throwing your hands and having success, why are you resetting to neutral for as long as you are? There's nothing wrong with getting out of the way of shots, but, like, to be as cautious as to go that far to distance and not throw kicks, not, try to change position so that you're in a better advancing point for the next sequence. It's like they really would, especially Cody Brundage, 1, 2, 3, 4, and back out. And now you go. It's like, well, that's not a great way to be.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think the chat's making some good points here. Cam Ralston does have a loss to Torres Finney on the Contender Series, lost to him by decision. But the point that I will make is that if the judge that was judging Robert Valentine was on Contender Series, Cam Ralston probably would have had a 30-27. So it's really up for debate here.
these are the facts. Well, either which way, Cam Rouston, shout out to you. I liked your knees. I thought that was very good. Kind of a little bit of a cringe lord, but not in the worst way that I've ever seen. And as I said in the intro, apparently he does not use the Battle Giraffe nickname. That was like one that he, I guess, has tossed to the side. But I kind of dig it. I'm with John Anik. I'm down with the Battle Giraffe. So I hope that he goes back to that.
Yeah, definitely. We've had some pretty good nicknames on here. Street Buddha, Battle Giraffe. Love it. Love to see it.
Indeed. So good
Oh,
win
best
for him.
nickname coming up, actually.
Well, let's get to it. All right. Yes. This is the next one. And this is one that, shout out to you, Chase. You saw something in this guy that seems to be coming true. Of course, this is Billy Elikana versus Junior Tafa. Just to start this out, Junior Tafa looking super lean in this fight. Good Lord. Looked like a whole different person. Unfortunately, he fought like the exact same one.
That was the biggest thing that we failed to notice, that this was not a heavyweight junior. This is because Junior has stepped up on short notice at heavyweight before, and
Correct.
then
Yes.
he competed against Walter Walker at heavyweight.
Right.
Now he's back at light heavyweight, and you are right. This dude, he can cut weight. I tell you, I don't know. This dude made weight and he looked good. He looked like he sold us for a first round, I'll tell you, because man, did he look good for the first round, and did he drop Billy Elicana that made me say, fuck, I'm so dumb. But like I've always been preaching, Billy Elicana is not just he's not just a dude who comes out here with a lot of skills, but like truly is kind of a gritty dude. You know, I've seen him get knocked down and he'll get back up kind of deal. I mean, I know he let Gushkov finish him, but he didn't get finished by TKO. He let him have the sub. You know, he wasn't going to get finished TKO. Anyway, when he got dropped by Junior Tafa, it was definitely not great. But he got back up because Junior didn't. God, I don't know. I mean, I can't remember exactly if he just let him up or if he just couldn't get going. But Billy Elicana eventually gets up. Second round comes. And Billy, you know, he's more in a rhythm now. He actually has the range, you know, down on Junior. Junior was missing, whiffing heavy in the second round. And then Billy was just able to eventually work towards a sub. I mean, this was great performance after I shit my pants. I'll tell you that.
True. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, to all of what you just said, I mean, it all tracks exactly correctly. I mean, what I had in the notes: the sky is blue, water is wet. Atafa only has one round in him, and get him to the ground, and the fight is over. That really is the story of this thing. And to your point about Elikana getting, himself to safety in that first round after being dropped, that was actually one of the bigger points that I had. I thought that was a really solid navigation of that situation because yeah, Tafa drops Elikana early. Nice work on Tafa's side in that first round. He definitely took that first round pretty handily, but Elikana scrambled away to save himself from the early finish. And I was like, okay, this guy can keep his wits about him against a striker that's actually going to put him in a jeopardizing situation, which is exactly what he needed to do. Because as expected, solid first round for Tafa. He definitely took it. Striking looked good. Elikana able to keep the pace even with being dropped. I was like, okay, let's see how the second round goes now, because that was exactly as you described, a very tense situation. But then Elikana lands a nice left hand, sends Tafa's head spiraling backwards for a second. Then he ends up with the level change. That has Tafa on like that going down off of that. And then I said once it goes to the ground, I'm like it's Tafa and Tuivasa, of course, we're going to talk about in a minute here. He actually was able to get back up. But I say, anytime that you see these guys going to the ground, the second it goes to the ground, it is over. It went to the ground and it was over.
Yeah, I'll actually give Junior a little more credit, but I've said this before. Junior normally has a good takedown defense for the first couple. You know, he
Mhm.
normally can stuff one or two, but if you are relentless about it, at a certain point, he's just like, fuck it. You know, we're going to the ground. You know, I'll figure it out from there. But he never has the ability to. He often just goes to the ground. It's not that he just gives up. It's like he has the idea and has the skills to defend him. It's just at a certain point, it's the willpower of the opponent just gets to him, kind of deal. And they go to the mat, and you know it's easy when you are when you have a black belt or whatever the fuck Billy Elikana's got. I want to know because it's better than a lot of these people's shit around here. I'll tell you.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and I think that really, like, I gotta believe. I don't know how much tape study anybody is doing, but if we're talking about it as many times as we have seen it, I would think that it's common knowledge. Like what you're saying is exactly true. They can stuff the takedowns for a while, but all you have to do is be relentless because
Hmm.
all it takes is that one drop. That's what is. It's so frustrating with those guys because it's like you're in a situation where your striking is obviously your strong suit, and every other thing that you have to do is in service of you not getting taken down because you refuse to improve the one thing that could make you a well-rounded fighter, because
Hmm.
that's all that they need is the ability to get back to their feet. They just do not have that within their arsenal and just are refusing to make it happen. So yeah, like all you have to do is be relentless because eventually you're going to get it. You've got 15 minutes to make that happen. He had a whole first round of opposition where he wasn't able to do it and then got it in the second, and he would have had the third had he not gotten the
Hmm.
second. So it really is just an unfortunate thing with the Tafas and and Tai Tuivasa, but that is what it is. Elikana proving to be someone who is actually pretty savvy on the ground. Now we're seeing. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily gave him as much credit for being as much of a submission guy as he's turning out to be, but this is now yet another two in a row now as far as submissions go, and then of course you've got Gushkov before that.
Yeah, and you know, he almost and that's the craziest part. It's like when you think of how his fights have gone, it's almost unfair. You know, they give him all these strikers, right? And yeah, they're able to give him a good shot, and he can take a shot, right? But as soon as he gets him to the ground, I mean, Gushkov, shout out him for getting out of it, but Billy Elicana almost walked out with $14,000 off a first round submission against a dude who's ranked right now. So that was his debut, by the way, on short notice. And then his second fight, you got a fucking 6'7" Brazilian monster who apparently has a black belt. You know what happens to him? He gets choked lifeless while the ref doesn't even see it. Then after this, you give him a guy who is known to not have grappling, known to get, taken down, known to get submitted, whatever you want to say. Billy Alicana walks in, no problem. 3 for 3, in my opinion, on subs. If the story was mine, Billy Alicana is one of the best submission guys we got right now in light heavyweight, of course. But like this dude, when you look at his UFC career at 10-2, he jumped right into Gushkov. So the people that he's fighting, they're going to be named people from here on out. I mean, you look at Ibo Aslan. I know it's whatever you want to say, but Billy Alicana is somebody that's going to be here for a little bit. He's going to be a business guy. He's going to be somebody that Dana loves because he's going to take fights against Junior fucking Tafa. He's going to take fights against Bogdan Gushkov on short note. Things like that are what's building the son of Susie. And I'm telling you, this guy is someone to keep an eye out for. If you haven't yet, you're going to miss out on the opportunities before he gets put up against Poton and then he gets fucking lit up or something. But
Yeah, that was kind of what I was trying to get to and didn't articulate is that, it's seeing him in the Gushkov situation and then seeing where he has come to now, I think is a great progression. Because, you could have, your perception could have only been shaped off of something like that. The same way that Fatima Klein comes in on short notice and does not win her first fight, but you see the flex of things that could be better going forward. And it's like good to see that is not going to be the defining thing of their career going forward now with Elikana being in a similar situation like that. So nice work to come back from all of this and be doing what he's doing now. So really good improvement. And I'm starting to see what you saw in him earlier.
And I would like to make a note, so his post-fight speech was very good. If anybody did not know, on Saturday, it was Susie's birthday. So everybody out there, make sure you give Susie a happy birthday. We did learn Susie has passed, so rest in peace, of course. But the son of Susie, of course, lives on, and this is one of my favorite fighters as of right now. The nickname, it's only half of it. The other half is him being a slick fucking fighter. And listen, when it comes to fighting, it's like this is a good example of people are always like, man, striking is the best portion of the it often can be fun when you have somebody who like really is relentless when they go for the grappling. Like it's when they get him down, it's we're not getting up or I'm taking something with you. Like Billy Elicana truly is shaping to be one of my favorite fighters. Like truly.
There you go. Yeah, 10,000%. You're exactly right about that. The ground game can be just as exciting if it is exciting.
Mm.
Yeah, and as you said, I did have a slightly awkward moment on my watch along with that where, it was Susie's birthday. I was kind of making a big thing of that. And then we did find that she passed. Obviously very sad about that. I did not know that. Yes. So all respect to Billy Elicana and of course, rest in peace to his mother. She lives on through his name and it's
Yeah.
his nickname. So that's a wonderful thing.
No, truly. I mean, nicknames are a dime a dozen when they work out. And you can have a really stupid one, you can have a really cool one. But when you have one that's meaningful and it actually works out, it's a little different. Everybody's got their own little backstory. But the son of Susie is definitely unique. I'll give you that.
Absolutely. So yeah, shout out to the kid. I want to continue to see him doing good things, and it seems like a good guy on top of that, which is great.
True. Yeah.
All right. Well, going on to the next one. Yeah. So, speaking of good guys, I've got something to say about this fight. This is Quillen Salkeld versus Jamie Malarkey. And what I'm going to say just off the top of this thing is that Jamie Malarkey needs to fight Anshul Jubilee next. I will not sit here and watch my Cro-Magnon King get ragdolled again and again and again. This guy has had a strength of opponent that is unfair because he is not a bad fighter and he has been around for a very long time. They just, God gives his toughest battles to his strongest warriors. Well, he is certainly pushing the limits of that, it would seem. And this fight plays right into that. So I'm hoping that Jamie Malarkey gets a little bit of a softball, as I had mentioned on the last episode, because Quillen Salkeld just really made this thing look a lot easier than it probably should have.
Well, I mean, yeah, what can you even say about this performance? I mean, we all knew Quillen was going to finish him. I mean, it was just a matter of how. Was he going to strike with him and put him down? Because we've seen Jamie Malarkey stand with anybody and everybody, and unfortunately, to his demise. excuse me. But Quillen, he was very measured in this. Obviously, he could have, had a performance on the feet and could have butchered him up, but getting him down and getting the neck crank, not even a fully locked in RNC, but finishing. Listen, like I said, it goes a long way to finish a choke or to finish when you have somebody's back. We're going to talk about it in the next fight. When you have somebody in a dominant position and you are a grappler, if you so-called have a black belt and you get somebody in the most dominant position in grappling and you cannot finish them in mixed martial arts, you are as useless as they come. Seriously. But Quillen here, being able to take the back, being able to get the finish, even though it wasn't a locked in choke, that says a lot about him. A lot of people, they wouldn't go for that. They're not just going to try to rip their head off because they don't have it underneath their chin. It's like they're going to keep fishing around trying to get the others. Like, dude, you got to just threaten something. If he makes a mistake, he can get in the neck crank and you can finish him. And Quillen proved it perfectly right here. And Jamie Malarkey, again, you're saying he's not some slouch. He has the skills that every other professional mixed martial artist has. He's just at a point in his career where, yeah, he's getting very, very tough competition. So I'm not surprised that this happened. I mean, it actually took a little longer than I think it should have. Quillen could have walked in 30 seconds and figured something out, but he
Well,
wanted to have an easy, this was an easier grind to a finish rather than having a war kind of deal on the feet.
yeah, I mean, I think that really the funniest part, kind of, you set me up for it, was that Quillen came in immediately working with the wrestling, so he kind of had a little bit maybe of a game plan. He said that he it wasn't the idea that he had in his mind, but if he goes to that immediately, like there might be a little bit of that going on. But either way, Malarkey defending pretty decently early on in this fight. He reversing position, getting Quillen on the cage a couple of times, whatever. Malarkey clinching himself, offensively. And then Quillen basically just at one point is like, I am done with all of this shit. I'm tired of you holding me here. And he hurls Malarkey with the trip toss. It was like ass over tea kettle flying of Jamie Malarkey. I was like, oh man, and not only showing that he has the ability to do that and get, the positional awareness to get the trip, but also the power in his upper body to lift him off of his feet and have him flying through the air that way. And then that slam, it all went part and parcel. And like you said, you described everything as far as the face crank goes. So, nothing really more to be said about that element of it. But I was just very impressed with Quillen's ability to just be like, if I don't like where this fight is currently, I'm going to take it to where I want it to be. That's what he did.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting when Quillen actually gets to the opponents that are going to have something to say about that. Not everybody's going to fall for the judo flip. Not everybody's going to initiate the clinch when they probably shouldn't. Not everybody's going to let you get two takedowns on them. It obviously it's going to take a special opponent to be able to mix all of that into it. But Quillen, it's getting me to the point where I'm a little worried. Like he's having too easy of a time. It's a rude awakening if you think everything's this easy kind of deal. So I don't know. It's starting to worry me because obviously Jamie Malarkey, we know what we were going to get here. This was a finish for Quillen, but Quillen might have some troubles coming up. I don't know who. I'm not saying I know who they are, but all I know is not every fighter has the easiest path. There's so much tape. These guys are trained and they're professionals to learn how to beat each other. So somebody's going to figure out how Quillen Salkid, operates and figures out what is the way to beat him. What is Quillen's move of operation when somebody has something that's going to deny what he's working with? Obviously Nasrat, I said, had a very good performance, but it didn't last long enough for us to be able, when Quillen is, when he's down on his luck and he's gassed out and he's, what are we going to see out of him? I'm excited to see it, but I think we're still missing that here. Oh, we lost Thinker. I lost
Whoa. Hello.
Thinker.
Hello.
Am I back? Are we back?
I think we are.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Shout
Well,
out
that
you.
was a little trip up there, a little slip up, but we are back. I think what you're saying is tracking exactly right. I think that the UFC is definitely recognizing that this is an. Am
Wow.
I out again? Hello. Jesus.
You are fine. Continue on, Thinker.
Yeah, internet issues abound tonight. Sorry, people. I apologize. What I was saying, I do think that the organization is recognizing the star potential in Sal Kild. He's got the Tom Selleck mustache. He's got the shag hair going on. I mean, the guy is, he's got a little bit of a look, and he's finishing his fights. And he's doing it, like you said, against Nasrat Hakparas, who's a pretty tough customer. This a little bit more of a layup for him. There is going to be some element of, where is the roadblock going to be? But that's going to be one of those things that's going to be a person by person, opponent by opponent kind of situation. So until he has that level of opposition, they're going to keep shooting him up. Why not? I mean, like if we're saying that we want to build Australian stars, this is definitely one that is fitting the bill right now.
Yeah, I kind of hate that we just got the Aussie versus Aussie matchup because I think Dan Hooker might be a really good matchup for Quillen, but we already got Aussie v Aussie, so we got to move on from something else, I assume, for Quillen.
Oh yeah, I mean, get him out into other international territories. I mean, he's already fought, on this side of the shore. So I believe, right? I mean, yeah, he's been over here for a couple, I think.
Moicano in the chat is a pretty good shout from Lachlan. Also, Dariush is a pretty good one. I mean, you got to just throw him out there and see what happens.
True. Yeah. I mean, because if he's 11-1, I mean, he's going to be getting himself into ranked territory probably within a fight or two, I would suspect. So any of those names make sense, and really, it's just a matter of what he can do in those fights. If I mean, I would suspect that, like you said, it's not going to be as much of a cakewalk, but I mean, he's already had fights that were not that way. That's the thing with Quillen Salkild. I mean, like he was not one that, like in his earlier fights, was like this is going to be the guy. Like he had to sort of become what he is now becoming. So is he going to keep that momentum and keep the train going off of all of this new hype that he's building? These are the questions, but time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more time, shout out the chat. You guys are awesome. Appreciate you for sticking with us through the internet issues we're having here, but
Hey,
everything sounds good.
yeah, no, absolutely. Having them here, having them on the Dirty Boxing stream, it's been a little bit of a slog lately with the internet stuff. So yes, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate you for rocking with us through all of it.
This comment from CTE, I'm just gonna does Chandler count when we're talking about finding a new minority for Quill and Salgood? And he says, you know why? If anybody else gets what he means,
Oh,
I mean, Jesus Christ, that is a pretty good comment. But man, you are foul. But wow,
oh, good
good,
lord,
good
with the
one, brother.
savagery. Shout out to Savage. Also saw him in the chat earlier, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah, CTE with the Savage comment. All right. Anyway, anything else on this fight?
Nope. I mean, obviously, Quilla did exactly what he needed to.
Yeah, and like I said, I want there to be some kind of justice in this world for Jamie Malarkey going out here as a good, humble dude who just wants to, prove himself as a fighter, which he does. But I mean, time and time again, you go back through his record, it's been ridiculously stacked as far as like the people who he's fought. Actually, a little known fact: pre UFC, fought Volkanovski.
He did get finished
So,
in the first round by Volkanovski by
so
TKO.
I mean, give this guy a break already. I mean, and it is kind of funny too because the wins that he does have are against guys who are the break guys. He's got like a Francisco Prado win, and like it's just like, yeah, they have been doing that. So I'm like, give him one more of those. Like, don't he shouldn't be in cut territory for anything like this, I would say.
There is something to say, Jamie Malarkey at the end of his career, he can hang his hat on looking at his tapology. He can say, I fought some of the scariest, like these are truly like some of the best people that we see around my era kind of deal. Like you don't have to win. He took fights against people that nobody else was going to. I said the same thing. We're going to get to the point with a lot of these people. Some people are just real scary and people don't want to get knocked out. People don't want to get choked out or have their, Walter Walker. They don't want to get their heels snapped, kind of deal. So we're going to get to the point where people stop taking fights. And you need a guy like Jamie Malarkey who's always going to pick up the phone and say, yeah, for $1,300. So
Exactly. No shame in the game, brother. I appreciate Jamie Malarkey.
now, speaking of people we don't appreciate, it's going to be
Oh,
easy right here.
yeah, brother. Well, yes, this is Tai Tuivasa versus Taliesin Teixeira. Chase, did you realize that this was Dana White's "If you don't know, now you know" fight?
Oh goodness. I didn't know there was a "If you don't know, now you know" segment that Dana White had on, but yeah, he needs to never do it again if this is the one that he thought was going to be the "Now you know it" moment.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, yes, yes, you do know now.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you need to know out of this fight because this was about as I mean, towards the end, at the very least, this turned into a definite walrus flop of an affair, but just an odd fight all through and through, and really not a great look on either side of the equation in this one.
Well, we knew the side of the equation with Tai Tuivasa was not going to look good. I mean, come on, we could have expected it. I mean, the striking, sure, there was moments where he had against Taliesin, but that is because, and I mean this with the utmost respect, that is because Taliesin Teixeira has proven to the world he is nothing more than your average heavyweight prospect. This dude is downright horrible. Like, and I'm not trying to be that way, but seriously, the striking not there. You had Tai Tuivasa in full mount, Nothing happened. It's crazy because you even went for the Ezekiel choke that Volkov got against Tai Tuivasa. You did not get it. You are a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and you gave up the attempt and just decided to sit on him. Tai Tuivasa then rolled to his stomach and has got his ass pointed at you, and you just decide to sit on him. Nothing was going on in this fight. The striking is the biggest issue because when you see Taliesin Teixeira strike with Tai Tuivasa in this matchup, you genuinely understand, like, Derek Lewis was going to win that fight either way. Like, I mean,
True.
even if it made it, like, genuinely, this dude has worse cardio than Derek Lewis, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Derek Lewis would have made it out of the first 30 seconds. Taliesin Teixeira is walking with his hands down, like falling over after everything in the
Oh
first
yeah.
fucking round. It's awful. And I get I'll let you go. And I
Okay.
get to that point. He's very tall. Balance is hard when especially if you're knocked off your equilibrium. But like, dude, he was like a wacky inflatable two man in this fucking fight. Jesus.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say is that like towards the end there, he's got this drunken master demeanor, but emphasis on the drunk part and not in a good way. I mean, again, this fight is just so bizarre on both sides. I mean, Ty coming out kind of strong early, ends up getting taken down for the first time in his life. Ty actually able to get back to his feet and then taken back down and is on the ground for 3 minutes of control time. It's like, okay, fine, whatever. Then cardio is instantly zapped. Ty is constantly clinching to catch his breath because his cardio is just that bad. Ty comes out with some heat, can't sustain the strikes because his cardio is just that bad. I mean, it was like, it was that on one side. It was Teixeira, doing the stumbling on the other side. It was such a flop fest. And then for Ty to actually have a little bit of a resurgence in that third round, but still, again, not enough of a tank to even be able to capitalize on the little successes, the punctuated successes that he was having. It just looked such like just a mess. This fight just looked like a mess all through and through. Again, by round 3, this was a walrus flop. It was amazing considering that Taliesin Teixeira is lean for a heavyweight. And to your point about what you're saying, yeah, you give him a little bit of credit as a taller guy. He is lean. He's not carrying as much weight as these average heavyweights are carrying on his frame. If Josh Hokett can keep himself, to the way that he is doing his thing and be as agile as he is as a bigger guy. Now, granted, he's a smaller, bigger guy, but my point is that this dude is not carrying the same level of body mass that these other guys are carrying. He's tall, he's big in the other direction. He should be able to have the cardio to last a little bit longer here, to get some conditioning.
I, I'm glad you brought up Josh Hokett because I have not really been believing that he was going to be the next one up. But I will say, after seeing this here, I will confidently admit Josh Hokett will be ranked by the end of 2026, guys. I mean, this is down.
Facts.
This is one of the worst. And I don't know if you noticed this. This was one of the first times I noticed it. They have this new camera angle that they've been showing where they show the fight, right? But then you have Hunter Campbell sitting in the back looking at it. This was not good at all, brother. I mean, he was probably writing a fucking final check for Tai Tuivasa on this one. It was horrible,
I mean, we
horrible.
we talked about that. I mean, again, we talked about it a little bit on the last episode of the fact that this is a 5 fight losing streak for Tai Tuivasa, now making it 6 off of this one. There is no reality where Tai Tuivasa can stick around in this organization. People, I mean, he has to get cut. I like, and I'm a fan. Like I've said, I like the guy. I think he's fun. I think that I'm not a fan of the shoey, but I understand why people like it. He's got personality. He walks out to Barbie girl. All of those things are great. He is not the caliber of this organization. I think at this point, even keeping him around to be a stepping stone doesn't even make sense. I mean, like you cannot have a fighter with this limited a skill set and physical attributes to go up against the people that you want to make look good. He's not a big enough name anymore based on the losing streak to make that worthwhile either. There's no reality anymore where this makes sense to keep him. So I said, Taliesin Teixeira sucks. Ty needs to be cut immediately. Go drink out of a shoe in BKFC, big guy.
No, I genuinely am just I'm stunned at how bad Taliesin looked because it's not that he lost to Derek Lewis. It's not that it was kind of a fluke, but like it's the fact that he gets one elbow on Justin Tafa and he's jumped into Derek Lewis as if he's some elite level striker. And then he comes into this fight with Tai Tuivasa and looks like the worst fucking fighter I've ever
But
seen.
that's the organization's fault. That's what I'm saying. That this we saw the same thing with Jonathan Janice. I mean, like this is an unfortunate reality of heavyweight right now is that they are trying very hard and have been having some success. Josh Hokett maybe being one of them, where now they're trying to reinvigorate heavyweight. So they're shooting guys up way too soon. And I don't even know if he would have any success if he wasn't hot shotted, if you want to even call this a hot shotting. But my point is that like these guys are getting higher level competition because they want to have new blood in the division. So they're unfortunate victims of the matchmaking. But either way, it doesn't change the facts of the boots on the ground with this guy. This ain't it. And I mean, you're seeing it in real time play out with a fight like this, man. I mean, it's hard to think that he ever was going to be anything of major note based on what we have now seen in two fights, and then having Tafa be the one that he had the win over, that was the dominant win, does not play well into that equation either.
Yeah, I'm glad that a while ago I told you guys that Mario Pinto was our final hope, and I'm putting all my stock in him because there are people out there who thought Taliesin Teixeira was going to be I've heard people from the United Kingdom say Taliesin Teixeira is coming for Big Tom's belt, and here we are now, So
Yeah, I mean, I think people see the physical attributes. He's a very tall guy. I think that they maybe put a little bit of stock into the black belt. Whatever, you're seeing the minute over minute of the fight when the guy had one, and I'm talking literally one solid combination in this fight. I mean, I think that really says all you need to say when we're talking about heavyweights.
it just comes down to the grappling too. I mean, you had all the positions, you had all the moments, you have the guy who cannot get out of the grappling. You should have finished this fight. You should have finished this fight with a submission. You had all the opportunities to. You have a black belt to your name. I I don't know what to tell you. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I agree. So, really, I mean, that's kind of the again, if you don't know now, you know. Now you know on both sides. Like I said, I think that Teixeira, I guess you give him some mid-level guy, and it ends up maybe he makes some improvements. Perhaps it's hard to think that would be the case, but he's going to stick around. But at this point, yeah, Tai Tuivasa's he's got to go somewhere where it's only striking. And even then, I mean, with the cardio being as bad as it is, I've seen guys in BKFC. I said, that's where he should go. There, that guy, Guilherme over there in BKFC that I watched on the last card that I watched, he would annihilate Ty under the current circumstances. So I don't know what the real future in actual competition is for Tai Tuivasa, but it should not be in the UFC.
I agree. Sadly, I agree. This performance from both of them was just horrible.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. Well, we talked that one through. I guess we can move on from it. I mean, I different circumstances, but I got a lot of criticisms of at least one side of this fight. This is Rafael Fiziev versus Mauricio Hufi. Shout out to you, Chase. You picked this one correctly, but this is another one like the Malkoun fight where I'm putting a lot more of the emphasis on the loser than the winner. I think that Hufi did not look great in this fight up until he did. He was very, very cautious through a lot of this fight, waiting for the shots. He eventually found the shots, obviously. So great work on that part of it. What I will say, and I said last week, if he strays from the creativity and actually goes to fundamentals, he'll have a better chance of being more of a winner. I think that proved itself to be correct here. But again, I got a lot of criticisms of Fiziev in this fight. So you go ahead and let me know what you think.
I actually think that we are kind of on the same page here, but I don't know if I have that many criticisms for Fiziev because from the way that this fight looked to me, I agree. Hoofy did not look that good. There's people out there who are telling you this dude's one of the best strikers in lightweight. Yes, he is, but the entirety of the fight, Fiziev had him on the back foot, and Mauricio was just gun shy. He wasn't. He was sniping. He was looking for that shot that was really gonna, do it. And credit to him, he found the shot, yes. But there's a major flaw in Hoofy's game. A lot of people, even when he came in, there was the comparison to Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor had such an elite level striking game off the back foot. He would step back and he would annihilate people. Hoofy does not have that ability. In this fight, Fiziev was able to just walk him wherever he wanted to. And Hoofy did not, obviously we got to the second round and he finished, but this was more or less Fiziev just getting caught. It was just a straight right down the pipe that Hoofy just threw out there. He did a good little feint before he hit it a little bit, but Fiziev was doing everything. I thought he was doing everything right. He was showing other lightweights how to beat Hoofy, and I think he did everything he was doing right. I don't think he won the first round. I think he lost the first round still, even though Hoofy did not look great. Second round, it is what it is. He got caught, and unfortunately for Fiziev, it wasn't even when I say he got caught, it's not like he got just fucking flatlined. He got punched and his body did shit that he can't really fucking. He just went running off and then he started falling and shit happens. I think this is more of a performance where I feel bad for Vazeev because again, a lot of things he was doing good. He was showing that you can beat Hoofy if you do this and do some other things right. Unfortunately, gets caught. He was going to if he did that, he was going to lose in 3 rounds, of course, by decisions. But Hoofy was not necessarily showing me that this is an elite level guy. That is, if somebody walks him down, he's going to have the answer for him. We'll talk about it in the next fight. Of course, I think there was a better an example of what we're seeing here. But go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that the one thing that I would say kind of rounds out everything that you said, because you're correct on all fronts, but I think that the thing that was lacking from Fiziev, because he really was doing everything else right, was the sustained striking. You have a guy in Mauricio Hoofy here who is not. He's so cautious. He's sniping, like you said. He's giving you the ability now, and I'm not saying go in. I never wanted to be thought that I'm saying go in and just leave your face open and just throw haymakers. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that if you are getting strike number one and then you're backing off and resetting, much like what I was saying about Cody Brundage, it's get in single shot and then get back out. I mean, even Cody Brundage was throwing more sustained striking. My point is that you at least try for 2 and 3. You're not necessarily going to land them, but you have the opportunity when you're in there to do that, then get yourself back out to safety if you need to. He's doing everything right as far as positioning, cage cutting, feinting. He looked really good except for the combinations. Throw a sustained string of strikes at some point. He also was doing really good work with the leg kicks, that he just abandoned that after the first round. Why? I don't know. Like, it's like there were just a lot of weird things there. And it got to the point, if you recall, a note that I had during the Umar and Figueiredo fight was when Figueiredo had Umar in a corner at one point and was just taking pictures. He really was just looking at him. Fiziev had a moment very much like this, and it was just infuriating to me. I'm like, bro, you have done all the work to get to this point. Everything that you've done led up to right here. You have him backed up. You are in position. You're cutting him from either angle. This is where you strike. Did not do that, and
Yeah.
then and ends up with the situation where he could get caught from Hoofy, because when you have the lack of sustained striking coming at you, you get to dictate when you're going to throw your strikes and find that sniper shot, which is exactly what he did. Send him off like a weeble wobble, and that was what it was. So I was very dissatisfied with just that one element, which ended up being the most important element of the whole thing.
Yeah, good performance from Hoofy, I would say. Doesn't necessarily make me believe that he's on his way to a title, but Fiziev, I give him a little more credit. Got caught, and it happens. It is the name of the game, and some people are just better than you on that night, and the one shot can do it. And Hoofy does have the ability to land that one shot. I would just I want to see him a little more active up until the shot. But, the shot landed nonetheless. He got the knockout. I was rooting for him. I would just like to believe that there's still more out there for Hoofy.
Yeah, well, I was
And
surprised
I
that you
think we
said.
lost Thinker again. So,
Did we really?
obviously
Hello.
everybody, we're having a good time here. Let's see if we're gonna catch him back. I hear him a little bit.
Yeah,
Not
I'm still here on my end. Can you not hear me? Hello? Hello? No, now I'm here. Can nobody hear me? I'm talking into the void right now. Hello? Echo? What is going on tonight? This is all very strange. This is a new one. Um, well, folks, I don't know if you can hear me right now. I am still here. Chase, oh, Chase is the one that was having issue. Okay, so you guys can hear me right now. Let me know if in the chat if you guys can hear me. I'm bring back the screen here. Um, okay, so if you guys can hear me, which is I'm hoping what is the case. Okay, you can hear me fine. Good. All right. Well, then we will wait for Chase to come back. Internet issues abounding, like we had said. We're having weather going on all over the country in the United States, so hopefully we get Chase back. But yeah, I mean, really, there's not all that much else to say. I was leading up to saying that I thought that it was interesting that Chase had said that he didn't think that Fiziev won the first round of this fight. Um, I thought that it was a pretty clear victory as far as the first round goes for Fiziev. Hoofy having some, minor success towards the end of the round, which I guess maybe swung it. But again, I think that goes back to my point about Fiziev just not having the sustained striking to make it definitive. I mean, like I gave him the round, but if a little bit of striking at the end of the round, a solid couple of shots that all were in sequence for Hoofy was enough to make Chase think that he won that round, that's not great. So it's an unfortunate situation with Fiziev and all of the things that I had been talking about earlier. Um, and I mean, Hoofy getting the knockout. I mean, like I'm not overly upset about the way it went down in the big picture. Oh, and we can bring Chase back in here. Hopefully, there we go. Are you back, brother?
I apparently am back. I anyway, let's
I know,
see
but
what
both
you have to say left.
both sides. No, I was just kind of wrapping it up, saying that I thought it was interesting that you didn't give Fiziev the first round, but if a sustained string of striking from Hoofy towards the end of the round was enough to swing it, that kind of proves the point that I was making earlier when we were talking about the lack of sustained striking. So
Yeah, that first round, I thought Fiziev was doing the right stuff, but Mauricio still edged it for me. I was like, close, but Hoofy still won that one. And then
true.
the second round obviously gets the finish. So
Right. All right. Well, so yeah, I mean, again, I found this to be very frustrating on Fiziev's side. I thought that there was a lot more that he could have done as far as strictly the striking goes when that ended up being such an important part of this fight. That's what bothered me about it. Hoofy getting the win, nothing wrong with that. Fine. I mean, like obviously the shot landed. It was a nice power shot as well. So good deal there. Him saying that he wants to be on the White House card, him saying that he wants to fight Connor, I think is a little bit of a stretch, but he is at least a little bit of a name. So, maybe he's just crazy enough to get his way. We'll see what happens there.
yeah, definitely. I don't think so, but hey, anything's possible in this world, I guess.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. All right. Well, I mean, that was all that I had. So, I mean, if you're good on
Yes,
that fight,
no, we're good.
all right, we'll get this train back on track here. Moving on to the next one. This is your co-main event of the evening. This is Dan Hooker versus Benoit Saint Denis. I mean, oftentimes you say Benoit Saint Denis is a marauder. I don't think that there was ever any more a clear definition of that than in this fight. He came out into this fight really aggressively, bringing the fight to Dan Hooker. Dan had a little bit of success evading for a while, but you can only evade for so long when a guy is putting this much pressure on.
This fight is interesting because while I do love BSD and he keeps his 100% finish rate, I'm hesitant to believe that he's got a bright future because listen, Dan Hooker immediately exposed that you can kick this dude in the stomach and it works because BSD he was hurting from these body shots real early from Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker has really long kicks, really powerful, and then BSD, he just puts his head down and charges forward, and it's not the craziest thing, but this is what I'm going back to with Hoofy. He has no back foot striking because I would love to believe if you were some elite level striker, if BSD puts his head down and just walks towards you, surely there's something that an elite level striker is going to be able to do to knock this dude off his axis. Because genuinely, when you see what he does, he puts the crown of his head towards his opponent, looks at their feet, and just charges forward. Surely there's something that somebody's going to be able to do. I mean, obviously, like I said, Dan Hooker was working the body kicks early, and BSD was getting hurt, and he had to obviously charge in there and go face first. But BSD, being the marauder that he is, we always knew it was going to be a war coming in here. We always knew that this was going to be some fun times. But the thing that I would say that I like about BSD mostly when it comes to his grappling specifically, and I think this is the thing that sets him apart, because I don't think you see this very often. When he's grappling and he's in top mount, or he's, on the top position of some sort, he uses his head to post a lot. Like there's a whole point in this fight where you're looking at him and his face is like flat on the mat, but he's like controlling with his head and his neck, and he's got his other arm to do other shit with. It's a pretty, I kind of like it, because you don't necessarily see people want to look that stupid, but it works. It definitely works. He was able to keep Dan Hooker under him, and then the finishing sequence took way too fucking long. That's about the last thing that I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, that was my big note, aside from all of the pressure, which really was very relentless. Yeah, the damage that Dan was doing was noticeable. There was a little bit of a concern there. Dan ended up landing a decently placed head kick as well when BSD dipped one of those times. That's exactly what you're talking about. I mean, he really does just put his face straight down and just, throw caution to the wind a lot. So there is potential for him to get caught that way. But yeah, my bigger note was really about the ground game. I mean, BSD at one point was going for the head and arm triangle. He had his leg unobstructed in half guard. Basically, all he had to do was step his own leg. Dan was not triangling the leg. I mean, it was completely open. All he had to do was step over and move his body, and he just did not do that. Instead, he readjusts the mount and remounts. It's like it was an odd IQ gap, but you see a lot of IQ gaps in BSD. You know what I mean? Like that's why I think that you're exactly right. The power pressure and the marauder style, it serves him well, because I just think that sad to say, I feel like we have a lack of guys who go out as aggressive as he does. And this is what I talk about being first. He embodies being first in a real way, and it serves him well because he does have enough skills to make that happen for him and to make it advantageous to do that. But there are noticeable gaps in the game, and something like that was very noticeable to me. I mean, there was a dead to rights head and arm that he had, especially when Dan was, I mean, he had been already resigned to losing this fight about, halfway into the sequence, it felt like. So, I don't understand why that was where it was. But again, I think that that's just the type of guy he might be.
And I've said this before. Well, going back to the position, I don't think it was an IQ issue. I think you could look at it in two different ways. You could say he's IQ stupid because he didn't pass the guard and try to finish the choke immediately. Sure. You could say he's IQ smart because he didn't want to lose the position. He didn't want to move his leg out, because then he doesn't have a half guard. He doesn't have any way to get back into full mount, whatever. The point is, either one of those could be true. He could have got the position back if he would have gave it up. But then also, he did try to do it. He did get his leg out eventually, but I think we are at a point in time, and I've said this a while back. When you go back to Thomas Peterson versus Dontel Mays, there was 3 fully cinched in arm triangles. He passed the guard and everything. Dontel Mays just sat there. Just sat there. Nothing happened. I think we are somehow too wise to it now, because Dan Hooker looked like he was in a world of trouble. Didn't go to sleep. He never went out. BSD must be the weakest dude ever if he couldn't get this squeeze off, but he had it cinched in. This is, I don't know if it's just we're getting too wise to it, and answering the phone truly is stopping the blood choke. I don't know, because Dan Hooker was fine after it. BSD had the choke in for a decent amount of time, didn't get it, and then finally decided to TKO, in which Herb Dean really wanted to see Dan Hooker die, apparently.
Yeah, I mean,
Jeez, I am having issues with my internet today.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, hopefully I'm still here. We'll see if Chase unfreezes for in a moment, but we might lose him again, and we'll bring him back if he does. But yeah, it was interesting to see BSD switching from sub attempts into the elbows, raining down punches. Thereafter basically saying okay, well, if I'm not going to get it here and I'm not going to get it here, then eventually I just need to do whatever's going to take to finish this fight. And again, Dan Hooker at that point, so resigned to be, so resigned to allowing that to be the case, that Herb Dean eventually did just have to step in. And also what was funny about all of that, I can hear Chase, but he's still frozen. Yeah, we're having some kind of issues up there, but what was crazy about the finish or leading up to the finish is that BSD is raining those punches down, and Herb Dean watching, and Dan Hooker is smiling through all of it. He's just, Dan Hooker. They said at the beginning of the fight, Dan is just a guy who really loves to fight. That may be true, but it's a you got to pair that with actually winning the fights helps a lot. I would say it's a hard thing to watch a dude just very happily taking as much of a beating as Dan Hooker did by the end of that thing. So it is what it is. Curious to hear Chase's thoughts about like what happens with Dan Hooker at this point. I mean, he's not sustaining. I mean, now he's going to be on a 2-fight losing streak, but a win before that, he's basically checkerboarding in a very major way. A lot of people are saying, oh, Dan Hooker is not of the caliber of the UFC, but he has proven that he has been in the past, at least against guys who were thought at the time to be of the caliber that you'd want to be seeing at higher levels. So what is the answer for Dan Hooker? I mean, does he end up getting into gatekeeper territory? That's kind of what I think might be appropriate. Drop him a little bit down the rankings and just, start feeding him some prospects. I don't know, but that would be kind of where my thought process is. And then as far as BSD goes, it's like, yeah, all of the holes in the game or potential problems that we were outlining do give some level of concern as to what his trajectory is going up against the actual elites. If you could say it was the staph infection in the Dustin Poirier fight, and that does track, but now we're going to need to see it again, even though he has now proven it 4 times in a row. I mean, I keep reiterating, and I did it for a reason. I put BSD as a potential fighter of the year for last year for a reason, because he had come back after the loss that people were having define him, because, you lose to Dustin Poirier. That's a big statement, whether you like it or not. Dustin Poirier, a legend of the sport, it becomes a narrative, but BSD has been able to rewrite the narrative in that regard, getting himself back into a favorable position, but now he has to do it again. And that, I think, is really what I end up with, is that it's a little bit of a tough point for BSD, because I mean, he wants the belt. He's talking about either BMF or the actual title shot. Couple of things have to happen for BSD to be in that portion of the equation. It's going to be sooner than later. How does that end up being navigated, I guess, is what we end up with. But for this fight, solid win for him. And now he continues to be able to be in that level of a conversation. So good deal with all of that, I suppose. Dan Hooker, I don't know. I mean, it's a little bit more dicey, I would say. And that's slightly concerning when it comes to how the go forward looks for him. I like Dan versus prospects, true test against Hart, and decent striking, grappling defense to get into the rankings. Yeah. I mean, again, I think that does kind of track, of course, Hydra with the assist on that one. Yeah, I think that tracks. I think that it gets to that point with him now, because it's like I talk about with the echelons of the sport. If you can't make yourself fit into the upper echelon, then you are resigned to a lower level to an extent. Like, it's almost by default that's how it's going to end up being. You end up in a position where this is the caliber of fighter that you are going to be allowed to compete against. Now, your shot is constantly being reevaluated every time that you lose these fights, and Dan Hooker does himself no favors by kind of memeing it. I was going to say that too, is that like Dan Hooker, he's a personality and he's a likable guy. And I think that he is a fun, good dude, but like going in there and saying, oh, everybody thinks I suck now, and then losing fights on top of it, that's really, you're not doing yourself any favors with the way that you're perceived in the sport. So he's definitely becoming one of those guys that you're going to get at least a spirited fight out of, I want to say. I mean, like, this was, it wasn't like he was out there just continuously like, going down and allowing himself to just be demolished, like without any kind of opposition. He was doing some decent work at times, but that only takes you so far. And that, I think, is where we're getting to with Dan Hooker. So give him give BSD the BMF loser. I think that makes sense. Actually, that would probably set him up for being the next in line if he wins that fight. So either next in line for either belt, really. So I think that tracks. Maybe that is the right way to navigate that. So either way, I don't know. It's not looking good for Chase. I was hoping that I was hoping that we were going to get him back. Let me just see here. He said, oh, his router apparently turned off. Yeah, well, we'll keep the train moving here, and if we end up getting chased back, that'll be great. Um, I'll just say come back when you can. Good deal. All right, so I will keep this ship a moving on my own. Thinker solo. That's right. Now you only get the actual based opinions. We don't need them clouded by anybody else. That's right. Chase leaves and I get to just say whatever I want now. That's how this works, you know? Same with me. If I end up having to drop out, Chase gets to say anything he wants about me. All right. Well, let's move it along to the main event here. This is, of course, Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes. Really, like I what I was going to say, and I'm actually even more upset that Chase is not here, is what I was going to say is that I'm most mad at myself. I am most mad at myself for picking Diego in this fight because I am the person who in the past has said what is going to be different in the rematch. Said this about Yuri versus Alex. Said this about potentially about Jamal if he was going to get the rematch. Like, there are a number of rematches. Actually, said it about Alex and Ankh, and thankfully that was one that bucked the trend. But that was the exception to the rule that proves the rule most of the time. Is that what is going to be different in the rematch? What do you bring to the equation different from the last time, aside from knowing what you're getting out of the fighter? Diego was somebody who I think I put a little bit too much stock in his fight IQ because really this was not very different from the first fight, unfortunately. This was something that ended up being a very similar set of circumstances where Diego was not cutting off the cage, which he himself had acknowledged was the thing that was going to be the key to his success. So when you're not cutting off the cage and also are not effectively throwing the strikes out, I guess because he was worried about getting countered, it was a little confusing as to why Diego was not doing what actually, shout out to CTE in the Discord saying that he should have been weaponizing his chin. You felt the power from Volkanovski in the first fight. You felt it often in this fight. Towards the end of this fight, there really should have been more of a willingness to throw caution to the wind because he was down so badly. I saw when we started the stream today, Beeb coming in saying that he didn't even think Diego won the second round. I mean, that was the one round that most people, including myself, were giving to him. So if that's the case, if you're having mixed conversation about the one round in a 5-round fight that you might have won, there should have been a time where you got to just say we have to go for broke on this thing. And again, this is also paired with a lack of cutting off the cage, which really was Volk's one of his strengths in addition to his many strengths. So I mean, Volkanovski proving himself to be the GOAT of the division. I mean, featherweight GOAT is, I think, almost a foregone conclusion for him at this point. But I really think that Diego let me down in a big way on this. I mean, the opportunity that you have with fighting a person for a second time is a set of information, a data set, if you will, that you do not come into the first fight with. And it is your imperative. It is the main and most important thing that you will do in the fight is to utilize that information, especially when it is a 5-rounder in the first go around. And to have people saying that he did better in the first fight than the second fight, that speaks volumes to the unfortunate nature of what this fight ended up being for Diego Lopes. So, I mean, again, the commentary I think was pretty accurate when I think it was DC who said that so many times with Diego not being active, just allowing Volk to dictate the entirety of this fight, all of the big moments were on Volk's side and on Volk's terms. And that ended up being a really defining factor of this thing, and Volkanovski, ever the consummate nice guy and the professional good dude that you know him to be, saying, oh, I mean, gosh, these fights are so tough, man, it doesn't get any easier. I think objectively it seemed like this did get a little bit easier based on what we saw. I mean, I see Jeremy Hall coming in. Thank you for being here, brother. Seeing that Diego needed to use his jab more. He needed to use all of his striking arsenal more. He was throwing some decent kicks early, and I thought that that might have been the thing that was going to be the difference maker. I thought, oh, okay, starting out with the kicks, that's going to keep the range. You're worried about Volkanovski's power inside. Volk, of course, a shorter guy with the, not, I mean, he does have a decent reach for a small guy, but you know what I'm saying? You're able to keep him at distance a little bit better. You know, you're worried about the power. Obviously, Diego was very concerned about the power, which again, surprising considering that he had already felt it. But you want to keep him at range with the kicks, fine. How much stock do you put in the feet being broken? That was, of course, part of the narrative after this fight. You saw the picture come out with Diego smiling on the hospital bench there, the reclining bench, with both of his feet apparently broken. You know, giving the thumbs up or whatever. I was like, oh, buddy, this is not great. I'm sure that slowed him down. You know, all things being equal, I understand those elements of things, but there just did not seem to be a well-rounded game plan. So like I was saying, he started with the kicks. Kicks were great. Feet start to get injured on your side. Adjusting the game plan is necessary if you want to win the fight. And if you're saying, oh, you know, he broke his feet and that's just how it's going to have to be, similar to Torres Finney, the same note applies as Torres Finney to me. You're in the fight whether you want it or not, dude. I gave Torres Finney's corner some credit when he was complaining about his knee. Said, I don't want to hear it. I don't want it. The knee is hurt. Oh well. Oh well on the hurt feet for Diego Lopes in this one, unfortunately. This is the circumstance that you are now in. Now you have to find a way out of that. And again, I'm not putting as much emphasis on the broken feet only because there did not seem to be a well-rounded game plan to begin with. So my point is that if you have a well-rounded game plan and part of it is, you know, involving the kicks and that goes away, then you have a fallback, a plan B, as it were. He did not have a plan A or a plan B, it would seem, and you got what you got out of all of that. So really, again, I kick myself for not sticking to the mindset of what was going to be different in this rematch. So too much inactivity. I think that also in the fourth round, you saw what happens when Diego took a few more chances. He actually did land a little bit in the fourth round, not enough to take the round. But my point is that like, if you don't have that consistently against the greatest featherweight fighter that has ever existed now, you know, the GOAT of the division, then this is almost a foregone conclusion. So, you know, I referenced the Torres Finney fight, much like the Fiziev fight. There were legitimate times where Diego was out there sightseeing, whether it was because of the feet or not. That's up to interpretation, and he can say whether it was or not, but it doesn't matter when this is the fight that you're having and these are the circumstances. So unfortunate is how I would class this. And sad to say, Volk sitting on Diego with his ass in his face was a good summation of this fight in the big picture. So really that's about all that I had to say about it. I mean, it's not like there were any kind of like crazy controversies or any kind of really outlandish moments. Volk does what Volk does best, which is go in with a solid game plan, evade well, make sure that he is staying out of the way of anything that was coming back. There was not enough to make it dangerous for him, so this was a pretty easy walk in the park in that regard. And 5 rounds of kind of skating around with save for that second round, which apparently is debatable to some people. So 4 rounds to 1, not a great look for Diego Lopes. And, shout out to ITP MMA. I was watching a video that he put out about all of this, just to, kind of had it on the background as I was getting ready for the stream. And what he had said was that, it's not Diego's fault that they hot-shotted him back into a title shot with less than a year in between the first go, even though the first go was a definitive loss as well. This is, the organization calls, you take the call, you got to do what you got to do. That's how the sport works. If he had not taken the fight, that would have been a problem for him way more than losing this fight. However, that being said, the outcome is as it is. And now Diego relegated to potentially staying in the elite class. I mean, maybe that's the big question, I would suppose, because really, I'm now questioning whether or not he ends up beating more of the elite guys that he is now going to have to face by default. I would say yes. I think that the answer is yes, but a fight like that certainly pulls it into question, I would say. So that's all that I really had to say about it. The only other real note that I had was Volk walking out to land down under in Australia is always a special thing. It is quite a moment. I had said that Sean O'Malley walking out to Superstar, I think is the name of that song that he walks out to when he knocked out Aljamain Sterling. I thought was iconic. It's probably one of my favorite walkouts that I can think of. This Volk walking out to Land Down Under has to be on the list of iconic walkouts because it is certainly a sight to see and to hear the entire audience singing along with him for the walkout. It's something special. So because this is the main event and we are missing Chase, I will go through some of your comments here. So Lachlan saying he trained cutting off the cage, but only the direction that Volk circled out in the first fight. So Volk just adjusted and circled off the opposite way. Interesting point if that's the case. Oh, and I think that we have Chase back. Are you here, brother?
I'm here, everybody. We are back
All
and better.
right.
I can't tell you how excited I am to talk about this main event right here.
Well,
Run me
brother, I
down what
said
you just talked about real quick.
I said everything I need to say. So you go
Okay.
ahead and say what you got to say, my guy.
My main thing about this performance is yes, a lot of people are saying it was not needed. Yes, it was not the performance that we were all expecting. Guys, game plan or not, you have somebody who comes in here and is willing to do whatever it takes to try to win this championship, and that happens to be throwing kicks at a guy who's out of range enough to where it is your foot slapping rather than your shin kicking them. Now, this is unfortunate for Diego's case because he was ripping leg kicks. I actually was watching it, and I'm not trying to act like I was super big brained or anything, but like I was watching it and I was thinking, like, yo, he's kicking him hard as fuck in the leg. And like this dude is checking them too. Like this is a tough one for you. And to find out that yeah, he broke both of his feet, fractured them, whatever you want to say. I mean, listen, I don't know if you guys have ever kicked if you guys are in training or anything, and if you kick something and you slap it with your foot, that shit fucking hurts. So the fact that he was able to compete for 5 rounds on top of that shit, one very, very, it shows Diego's got immense heart. I mean, and not to mention the game plan was not working correct. People want to argue that he won round 2. I'm not necessarily saying that that's the case, but I will for sure argue that he won round 4 because he dropped Volkanovski, and but immediately they started glazing. Oh, it was just a trip. It was just a trip. They didn't tally it on ESPN either because of this shit. Brother, you watch it in slow motion. Diego catches Volk right on the chin and his feet stop working and he falls forward on his. That is a knockdown to me. I don't know where in the world they did not want to tally this. Justin Gaethje obviously got a couple knockdowns that they didn't want to tally there too. But like the one round that Diego could have possibly won, they didn't tally what actually wins him the round. So it doesn't make sense for him to win any other round other than that one to me. 50-45, pretty crazy, but in a world, people say he won round 2, so maybe it was 2-2 going into the 5th again. I don't believe that, but Volkanovski was able to, at this age, prove that he once again is the greatest featherweight of all time. And I like this performance just because everybody seemed to hate that Diego got the opportunity. But guys, he seemed, what I saw out of Diego here is what I saw at a Whaley against Shevchenko. They understood it's bigger than just a fight right now. It's like I'm going against the greatest of all time. Like this is going to be something that people talk about. Like I've had 2 matches against Volkanovski. Like that's record things. I can take that and hang my hat on that for the rest of my career type of deal. But just I really enjoyed this performance, and I'm really glad that Volk won. I was riding with Diego Lopes, and I thought he was going to be able to get it done. But life has different. There's different cards out there for everybody, and Diego's got a different career path than Volkanovski. Obviously, Volk is one of the greatest of all time. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. Diego Lopes has a lot of grinding to do if he ever wants to get to a title shot again. I don't know if I want to see him move up. I would really like to see him just continue to stay at featherweight, just like Max used to do. I'm fine with it. Diego Lopes is fun to watch. He's got a high finish rate still. I know he's gotten a little decisions here and there, but as of right now, Diego Lopes is still going to come out here and put on performance after performance. And I think he's somebody to keep an eye out for because the people that are under him, I mean, gosh, guys, there's not many that are really exciting to look out for. I mean, you got Jean Silva, but after last performance, I mean, what is there to say? You know, so you got Aljo Zalal, Mosvar Larone, and then after that, I mean, what can you say about the excitement factor? Diego Lopez has that. So
Yeah, I mean that was going to be the question that I was going to pose to you is like, in two parts. I mean, the first part of that is what I had said, it's unfortunate for Diego. I almost feel a little bit bad for him. The organization calls you for the title shot, you pick up the phone. That's what you have to do. It's not his fault that they decided to make this fight again as quickly as they did. All of the factors that go into that part of it, I mean, learning from the last fight, having a better performance by a lot of metrics in the first fight, that I think is a little unfortunate. But really, him taking the fight and this being the case, it's almost unfortunate that it went down that way because like it's out of his control. He had to take the fight. The fight was what it was. It ended up being what it was. So what ends up happening to him now, I guess, is just staying around in the elite class and just kind of going against whoever they want to throw him up against. But like he is now going to have to work his way back to another title shot. And then it gets into that equation where, I mean, Max is kind of a good example of it. Granted, they were all against Volk, but it's like, how many times? How many times can you justify this, even if it is deserved? So it puts him into a predicament that I think is a little unfortunate for him.
And I think whether or not that's good or bad, I think it's gonna just flip the script on him in a position that Larone and Mozart find themselves in, where people say they're the rightful people to get the title shot, and they just won't be able to get it. Diego will be in the position where I think he'll get to the point where he's the rightful title contender again, but you can't. It's like a third title shot for Diego Lopez is pretty crazy to offer. We're gonna have to start looking for other people, kind of deal. So I don't know how it's going to go. Diego Lopez, obviously, 27-8 for his pro record is not necessarily, screaming all time great, but he is somebody that's going to come out here and take fights that nobody else will, and he'll put on a performance. I mean, I really hope that we get to see him in Yair, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So
Yeah, I mean, Yair needs to probably win a fight or two before that would. But either way, yeah, I mean, the last thing I will say now that you are back is that, I had mentioned it while you were off, is that I kick myself because I am the person who has said, what will be different in the rematch? What are the circumstances that have changed? And that kind of plays exactly into what happened here. So since I only have myself to blame for picking Diego, I have to blame you, Chase, for not reminding me of this. So
yeah, I can see that. Diego, I still have a lot of hope for him going forward, but this unfortunately was a masterclass by Alexander Volkanovski.
and like, are you surprised by that? You know what I mean? I don't think, how can anybody be at this point? It's like, yeah, you lose to Islam Makhachev, the pound for pound, best fighter currently actively throwing hands. I mean, like Volk is the GOAT. There is a reason that he has gotten to this position. It all makes sense in the big picture. I'm not mad at any. Really, again, I think that it all just comes down to really just being mad at the organization for this happening when it did. I think that this should not have happened. This fight should not have come together as quickly as it did. The circumstances with the foot break and or the foot breaks and all of that, that is unfortunate and all in the big picture as well. But really, this could have been Larone. This could have been Movsar already. They wanted for different reasons this to be the fight that they had. And now you get what happens when that happens.
100%. Yeah, I really just can't tell you guys how brutal I think that this was for Diego Lopez, bro. I'm telling you, like, the leg kicks are one thing, smashing your feet up is one thing, but confirmed fractures, I mean, listen, if you look at the slow motion of the kicks, man, it's just the slap of the foot, and it's smashing against Volk's shin, and it's like I can't tell you guys how bad that shit is hurting for him. So for the fact that he was able to continue fighting for 5 rounds on feet that are jacked up. I mean, kudos to him. He might be limping for the rest of his life now, but for my entertainment, this is what I love to see.
Yeah. So, I mean, take that away as a Diego Lopez fan, I suppose, not necessarily something to be full on ashamed of, even if there was probably better success in the first fight than this one. Again, victim of circumstances, what I will leave with on this one. And that's really about, as I said, I said most of what I need to say about it. So that's kind of, whoa, no, not that.
Wow, we
Sorry.
are having all these
Well,
technical
yeah,
issues today,
Jesus
guys.
Christ. Sorry, dudes. Yeah, all kinds of stuff going on tonight. But yeah, that was really all I had about that. So I mean, was there any other points you wanted to get to with that fight?
I think I ran it down pretty quick. Unfortunately, there wasn't necessarily too much to say because it was just one long round. It was one 25-minute round of Volkanovski doing what Volkanovski does best. And hats off to him. I kicked myself before that I wasn't a fan sooner so I could see Volkanovski actually rise to, his Hall of Fame status. And, I'm at the point now where Diego Lopez has fought him twice. Volk's got the belt back, whatever you want to say. It's great to see that I get to experience the championship Volk. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that is it looks like it's going to be going on for a little while longer. Volk seems to be completely okay with continuing on fighting, and I hate to think that Volk is going to be one of these guys that's going to be fighting past the time that he should be continuing on. But that does appear to be the case. A lot of people were saying that they were hoping that he was going to retire after this fight, but not happening. He said
mhm.
he's ready for Movsar, he's ready for Lerone, whatever they want to do. So I guess we'll see what they end up wanting to do.
And to that note, actually, I think it's perfect that we talk about this. He's ready for Mosvar. He's ready for Larone. There's some people out there, and by some people, I mean specifically one fighter himself believes that he's the rightful person to fight Volkanovski, and that is John Silva. What does everybody think about this? Volk is actually running from John Silva right now, is quote unquote what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's. I mean, look, I don't want to say something out of turn. We've been a little, I think we've been very respectful of our approach to the autism element of John Silva. It would seem to be very far fetched, and I'm not trying to attribute it to that. I just want to say it's a wild brained thought, regardless of that thing that I just mentioned, for him to be coming at the crown this way, considering that he just lost to the guy who was in the fight that he is now asking for.
Yeah, it is definitely a new way of thinking that you can just throw your. I mean, listen, throw your name in the hat or throw your hat, whatever the fucking thing is. Throw your name in the hat. Yeah, do it, I guess. But like, there's a way to go about being a respectful kind of contender. Calling out the champ, saying he's ducking you, brother. You just got destroyed last like 2 fights ago, and
And
then
went
your
to
last fight,
decision. Yeah,
and then Arnold Allen gave you the toughest fight of your career so far. Other than the
right.
knockout. But like, yeah, I don't see that one coming to fruition for him anytime soon. If not Mosvar, it's going to be Larone. But the fact they're fighting each other, it's obviously going to be one or the other at that point. But after them, it's Aljo and Zalal is by my accords. So John Silva, you got another win to get. So you might as well get active and get in the gym. Because if you're going to sit around and wait for the title shot, you're going to be stuck in the situation that Mosvar and Larone are in. People are going to lap you because they want to be active.
Waiting for the title shot based on a 1-1 past two. I mean, like that. There is no waiting for the title shot. He's not done enough. I mean, only off of name, I guess. And then the previous victim, a knockout of Melsik Bogdasarian. Please, dude. There's no world where John Silva deserves a title shot to the point where he could wait for one. So I would say the loser of Movsar and Lerone. They just announced that fight, of course. I think that would be appropriate if they are trying to hotshot him into that point. Not even hotshot him, but if they're trying to move him
Mhm.
towards the goalpost, then give him the loser of that, and then if he wins that fight, we can have a little bit more of a conversation. But in the meantime, somebody needs to we need a Jean Silva wrangler. He needs someone on his team. I would think that it'd be his wife, considering that she's so around. She's such a face in his camp all the time that maybe she'd be the one putting her hand on his shoulder, like, hey, maybe you need to calm down a little bit. But for some reason, she's not. So I think that there needs to be an assigned Jean Silva wrangler who
I
goes in
I
there
hear what
and
you're
takes the
saying.
phone away.
I hear what you're saying. So you're saying he needs to go down to Polino Cruz and he needs to get himself a translator that'll be in the bedroom with him kind of deal and cuck him out. Either way, I think this is a good idea. I like that. Yeah, John Silva definitely needs a handler. I always when you fun little tidbit when you watch the Vince McMahon documentary. I know this is a crazy reach right here. When they would talk about Andre the Giant and shit like that. Actually, I think this was a different documentary, but either way, Andre the Giant, Vince McMahon, either way, they would have a dude that would come on the screen and talk about Andre the Giant, and he was listed as Andre's handler, like he was a fucking animal or something. And it's like, John Silva might need some of that same treatment. But either way.
It's the same thing that happens with rock stars and all kinds of other people who have the tendency to fly off the handle when they really, really shouldn't. And that's what we seem to be seeing from John Silva recently is, outlandish statements and outlandish activities and screaming and crying at the belt and all kinds of things that make people go, this guy might not be it. I think he's doing more harm to his image than good to his image right now when it might have been different earlier on. I mean, during the Bryce Mitchell lead up. He had one kind of perception, and now I think he's starting to get on people's nerves. To be perfectly frank, I think that the ship has sailed on him being like the guy that, oh man, he barks a lot. That's funny. It's like, yeah, that only lasts for so long. So I think, yeah, a handler would be appropriate.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, all of that aside, of course, that takes us to the end of UFC 325, Volkanovski versus Lopes 2. After talking it through, Chase, and now being back on the podcast, what are your final thoughts on this thing?
This one was a really good one. I know when you look down the names and you look at the slate of fights and you understand that they're shelving a lot of the better fights for later on in the year at a specific event, this was a good event to watch. Coming into Paramount, you can't have your Conor McGregors, your Brock Lesnar's, and shit like that anymore. You got to have just your standard run of the mill. Alexander Volkanovski is a name to us, but to casuals, nobody knows who that is, kind of deal. So when they get onto Paramount and they see a guy like this fighting, I mean, this is just standard. This is what the UFC is. Like, this is perfect. This is a card that a casual fan, you'll see some ups and downs. You'll see some of the roller coasters. You'll see some stuff. Maybe the robberies, the casual fan is not going to be like, that's weird. But like, you get a lot of everything in here. And that's what you can always want out of a UFC card, is just that roller coaster of emotions. And then we get to Monday and we get to talk about it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, this is very similar to the last event where I said, good, bad, and ugly. I would say really is what you ended up with on this one. More decent than anything else. I'd say there were a couple, like we said, standout performances. Some things that frustrated me, and overall, a decently satisfying experience. And I mean, it's unfortunate to me that Alexander Volkanovski is not more of a household name outside of hardcore fans, because he is a great ambassador for the sport. So there's never going to be a problem out of me of having Volk headlining an event.
100%. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so good deal there. All right. Well, that being said, finally, it seems crazy to say, but finally, we're getting to a fight night, which is going to be the first one of the year so far. Two headlining cards, two numbered events, to start this thing off on Paramount Plus. But of course, we are going to be getting our first view at the new Meta Apex with UFC Fight Night, Bautista versus Oliveira. So why don't we run down our picks for this card? Chase, what do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. This should be really, really fun.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm be interested to see what the Apex looks like. Of course, other people have seen it on Zuffa Boxing. I have not watched that. I, of course, have made my stance on that pretty clear. So I am saving myself for this UFC Vegas 113 card. Aside from that, yeah, I mean, let's talk about this first fight, or this the main event of this thing. This is Mario Bautista, of course, versus Vinicius Oliveira. I know that you are a Vinicius Oliveira fan. I have mixed feelings about this guy. What do you think's happening in this fight?
I would say, you saying that I'm a fan of Vinicius, I'm glad you say that, because that's how I feel. I truly do feel like I'm a fan, but when I am a fan of somebody, if I'm truly expecting greatness from you, I am very critical of what I've seen. Vinicius Oliveira has had his moments, and he has performances where he gets to be very confident in his striking. Now, the reason that I'm hesitant to pick Mario is because I've picked him before, and obviously we've seen how that goes. He's a journeyman. He's got the skill sets that he can stand with Umar and not get finished. But whatever, that's everybody. But when it comes to Vinicius Oliveira, he has a matchup against Ricky Simone that I think is actually aging quite well, because Ricky Simone is, again, a guy kind of like Mario Batista, who's just been around, able to do a lot of different stuff, and has come out on top in a lot of different ways. Mario Batista, I think the ship has sailed for me to believe that you're the guy, but on the other hand, I think this is just the test that Oliveira needs to be able to reach that next status. If he beats Mario Batista in a way that is sufficient to me, of course, obviously I have to see how the fight plays out. But if he does a lot of good here, I will definitely be rooting for Vinicius for a very long time. I mean, his striking in his last matchup leads a lot to question, but he gets a little wild, he gets a little loosey goosey, and sometimes it's good. One thing I will say, and the thing that I'll leave it on, he has the X factor. He's a wild card, so you can't really go wrong with it. It's a coin flip, always.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that the things that I've seen out of him that kind of make it so that it is such a coin flip are the fact that he is kind of reckless. He kind of throws caution to the wind often, but he is very crafty about getting out of clinch situations and getting tied up. We know that Bautista often likes to do that. I mean, that is, one of his bread and butter things that actually ended up playing it to his detriment against Umar, because it was like, you're not going to be able to play that game with Umar. And then if you can't get your striking off because Umar is better than you in the thing that you fall back on so often, it turned into a big problem for Bautista. I think that Vinicius Oliveira does offer a lot of craftiness that's going to be a problem for Bautista. I want to say that Bautista is going to be able to find the clinches that he's looking for eventually. I want to believe that that's the case, and then the striking I think is going to be on Bautista's side. For those reasons, I think I am going to go with Bautista, even if he is. I know it's crazy to think because Vinicius Oliveira is so much newer to the organization, but he does have a larger, more extensive record. I think that kind of washes out because of Bautista's experience at UFC level. I'm gonna fall back on the experience of Bautista in UFC to be the thing that's going to make the decision. But this will be another one that if Vinicius Oliveira like sneaks his way through and is crafty enough to pull the victory out, I won't be overly surprised by it, because Bautista, like you said, journeyman, and really I think that is his hard limit. So like I it's unfortunate because it's like you think that there might be like room for improvement for Bautista. I haven't seen that. So I think that capping off at beating Vinicius Oliveira really is his ceiling, but he should be able to still do that.
Okay, so final answer. You're going with Mario Batista.
I am, as much as it's crazy to say, because I'm as mixed feelings on this guy as anyone else is, and I know that there are a lot of people who take it a lot farther than that when it comes to him. But I'm not exactly a huge Mario Bautista fan, but I do think that against Vinicius Oliveira, he should have at least a baseline skill set that will be able to counteract what Vinicius brings to the table.
Hell yeah. So if anybody out there is listening, just make sure you take note that me and Thinker have picked opposing viewpoints on this fight. So make sure to like the stream of the person whose pick you like the best. And going forward, make sure you support us, all the way through. We're out here making picks for you guys, and make sure you make some money, and just make sure you think of us when it happens. There you go.
Yeah, like the stream, we're streaming to our individual channels, if that is still the case anyway. So make sure you like the stream that you agree with most. And actually, to that end, Chase, I forgot to ask, who was more right about our picks from the previous card?
I don't. I just have a running total. But it was me. It was. Let me see. I got 10 right. So I got Lawrence Louis. I got Nakamura. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Nakamura, right? Yeah, Nakamura, O'Fly, McAuliffe, Rouston, Elikana, Salkid, Teixeira, Hoofy, and Saint Denis. And the ones that we differed on, I think, let me count how many you got. So I had 10. So hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So yes, I had 10 right, which was actually really good for me. But
Yeah,
again,
pretty good.
the four to start, I'm not really taking too much into. The road to the UFC, that's a one-off type of deal. And then your points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I won by 4 points. I know.
Annihilating me. Okay, well then I got to do really good this week. I got to redeem myself. You're up 2 this going. You're starting the year out strong, and I am trailing dramatically. So
Hell yeah.
all right. Well then, differing to start off with, we'll see how this one ends up going. So you're taking Vinicius Oliveira locked in.
Taking Vinicius. It is locked in. The Excel sheet is not changing.
All right, I like it. All right, well then let's get on to the co-main event here. This is Amir Albazi versus Kyoji Horiguchi. Excuse me. Yeah, I've been very open about being a big fan of Kyoji Horiguchi. I'm very happy he is back in the UFC. We talked about it when his first fight back on this recent stint, where he's been jet setting all over the planet, getting wins on 800 different organizations. Guy has been fighting all over. He's Russell Crowe. He's fighting around the world, kind of thing. I love that he is back, and I love that he is fighting Amir Albazi. Albazi, who looked absolutely atrocious in his last fight against Brandon Moreno. Now, granted, that's Brandon Moreno, who looked amazing in that fight. So, you can kind of gauge it how you want to on that. I've been a Horiguchi fan for a long time. I think that he is a little bit older now. He's 35 years old, but Albazi 32 years old. This is not a crazy gap, and Horiguchi came back looking pretty damn nice since he has been back. He's showing that he is still UFC caliber. I'm liking this matchup, and that's where my thought process is right now.
All right, I actually do agree with you. I think Horiguchi probably is going to be able to win this one. Amir Albazi he came back, took a loss, took another year off. So who knows what he's even going to look like? I mean, he looked like a punching bag in his last performance. Is Horiguchi going to have the same success? I don't know. My take about this, though, I think Amir taking time off, not being acclimated to like competition weight cutting, I feel like is just gonna I feel like he might miss weight here. I'm thinking Amir is gonna be over a little bit. Sometimes I got a feeling about it.
Could be. Actually, something that we did not mention when it came to Tai Tuivasa, also a guy who was off for a long time, and also a guy who almost missed weight. He did not miss weight, but to almost miss at heavyweight, kind of wild. Just a general note there. But if you have that inclination, then so are you? I'm going to lock in Horiguchi for this one. You're going there as well.
I'm going Horiguchi. There's not too much that I have to say about this one because again, Amir Albazi is somebody that wasn't around too much when I started watching. He had one fight against Brandon Moreno, came back, got smoked, and took another year off. So we're gonna have to see just how good he is. But if he beats Horiguchi, I mean, that might be some pretty good stock that he just raised for himself.
Sure. Yeah, I will agree with that. If he does come out here and look completely 180 different than he did in the Moreno fight, then that will actually speak really big volumes because of course he had some medical issues that he was dealing with, came back, did not look as good after that. You can chalk it up to a number of different factors, whatever. Another long layoff does not help that. But if all of those things equal up to him coming back and looking tremendously better now, it's like all of those issues are gone. I'm the man that I always was and am again now, kind of thing. I'm not back, I'm better or whatever. Like, then, okay, the conversation changes like instantly with that. But all things considered as they are currently, I think Horiguchi is the pick for me.
100%. I'm definitely with you on this one. Shout out
Yeah.
Japan.
Yeah, and I mean, and sad to say, it's like Albazi, based on all of what we just laid out, it's like he's a person that, for a lot of people, why is he even still in the rankings equation? So, this is a put up or shut up kind of match for him right now.
This is what the organization would want Horiguchi to win as well, because then this gives your opportunity for Pantoja to not only come back and fight for the belt, but if he doesn't come back and fight for the belt immediately, he takes time off and heals, whatever the case may be. You have a rematch with Horiguchi coming up, or I think he fought Horiguchi. Maybe it was Figgy. I think I'm wrong about that. But either way, you have a matchup with Horiguchi with a lot of different people coming up, and it fills the top of the division. Where if Josh Van is going to hold the belt, and we're going to go with Cap, or if we're going to go with Tatsuro, Horiguchi has plenty of opportunities to go with whoever they don't pick for the title shot. So,
Sure,
but
absolutely. Yeah, most definitely that. And depending on how things navigate, which I don't think it would necessarily get to be the circumstances for this, but Horiguchi versus Taira in Japan would be that'd be pretty epic. So
yeah, they did say, they said that they were looking into Japan. So I mean, that's still on the docket. It's not just they were looking into the venue itself. It doesn't have to be Josh Van and Tyra, and they're just going to move on. So Japan is happening. I
right.
agree. Japanese guy versus Japanese guy is cool. We saw China versus China on UFC 300, and that was two women. So I would like to see Japan versus Japan.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's a lot of narratives that can be written with this one. So
Mhm.
see what happens. But yep. All right. Horiguchi locked in for both of us on that. Next up down the line, everybody's favorite heavyweight, Jailton Almeida, is fighting Rizvan Kuniev. Of course, Kuniev coming in and taking the loss to Curtis Blades was his last one, and been a little while since we saw him. Did not look bad in the Curtis Blades fight, in my opinion, at least when it came to the striking. But Curtis Blades ends up getting the win on that. Of course, Jailton Almeida is coming off of the loss to Volkov, which, depending on how you look at that fight, could have been exactly the right call or exactly the wrong call. This is really kind of up to your interpretation of what happened in that fight. What are you thinking on this, Chase?
I'm thinking that Jailton Almeida is as good as we remember. He is just lacking, you know, uh, I don't know what it's the IQ, I guess. There's sometimes where you have a guy that is a striker and he'll decide to strike with him, or you have a guy that's a grappler, and then he doesn't use his grappling that's way better than this person's grappling. I don't know. Jailton has his moments where he's just fucking up. But I think we're gonna have the people forget man performance here. I know I said that a little bit ago last week about somebody, and I fucked up. But I think this one is true to life. I mean, Kunaev is fine. Yes, split decision against Curtis Blades on his debut is fine, but that's striking only. Jailton Almeida, he doesn't know how to fight according to DC. So he's just going to take dude down, pick him up. Because if you guys remember, Jailton Almeida, while being a very an undersized heavyweight, he's still able to manhandle these people that are 30 to 40 pounds heavier than him. He will pick them up and dump them. And what is Kunaev going to do once he's like on the fucking ground? Curtis Blades is fine and one of the greatest heavyweight wrestlers, statistically, but Jailton Almeida should go ahead and win this fight, I think. I have no problem with taking Jailton.
Yeah, that's kind of where my thought process is too. I mean, Curtis Blades, yeah, statistically and on paper is all that counts for as far as I'm concerned when it comes to his wrestling credits. He's never actually lived up to the moniker that he has created for himself with the wrestling accolades. Jonathan Almeida, on the other hand, has done that. And we've seen him, wet blanket these guys, and whether you like it or not, it will win him fights. Again, not against Volkov necessarily, but it has worked in the past. Kunaev might be able to get the striking going, and that would be his big claim to victory if he can land some good shots and get Jailton off his rhythm. But Jailton has proven that he's able to roll with the punches, even if he's not throwing them himself. So I think that really kind of speaks to exactly how I think this fight is going to go. I was not, even if it was a closer fight than I thought that it was going to be, I was not super impressed with Kunaev. I was, I think, a little bit surprised by how well he did against Blades, but that was just because he's a new guy getting such a big level of competition early. I'm going to need to see him again. This is yet another person that what I was talking about with the experiments at heavyweight, a guy who they just put into the elite class, or elite, but put into the higher class of fighter at heavyweight because they're trying to shake the division up. And that could be to his detriment if he's not able to hang with guys like a Jailton Almeida. And I think that is where it's going to land for this. So Jailton Almeida, I think, is a pretty safe pick on this one. I am also going to go Jailton Almeida.
Just remember, Kunaev is from Dagestan. He might be able to wrestle. Who knows?
I mean, the thing about the Dagestani Sambo is that you've got to actually be able to full on move your body in explosive ways. And I think that is going to be the fundamental flaw there. But crazier things have happened.
True. Fair enough. I'm taking Jailton. I like this one.
Yeah, same here. All right. So 2 for Jailton Almeida on that one. Moving on down the line, of course, Mikhail Oleszejczuk, the fighting nerd himself, versus Marc-Andre Barriault. I know that you've been a fan of Marc-Andre in the past. Does this change your opinion at all, fighting Mikhail Oleszejczuk with his newfound striking acumen?
I was actually gonna say that's exactly what I think is the biggest problem here. So Marc Andre, tough as they come, sure. Striking very traditional, very technical. Mikhail Oleszejczuk is one of the fastest strikers at middleweight. I mean, this dude's hands are lightning, and he does have the power. I mean, granted, it's Gerald Mearshart that we saw it, but it wasn't just the power, it wasn't the speed, it was the accuracy. It was all there for the striking for him to just walk in, obliterate him, and get it over with. I think Marc Andre is going to be a little tougher than that, but he unfortunately has this ability to become a punching bag in some aspects of his game. And I think if he lets Oleszejczuk tee off on him, I mean, it could get scary for him because now Mikhail is one of these guys that he racked up a lot of losses at one time. So he's kind of one of these meme guys that you think is not very good. But Polish fighters, guys, they do get after it sometimes. And I think this guy might be able to give Marc Andre a really good performance here. And that is coming from somebody who likes Marc Andre, but I've seen him when he's up against a striker who can gain confidence, like a Shara Bullet kind of deal. It's not a good recipe. He let fucking Dominic Reyes just blast him in the face. Like he was willing to take that shot kind of deal. Like I don't know. Now it wasn't Dominic Reyes, I'm sorry. But
Yeah,
I'm thinking of fucking who am I thinking? Not
Justin Jacoby.
Maybe. But either way, this
Yeah,
dude puts his face in a lot of punches. I think Michael is gonna get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest problem, really, is that crazy to think that Mikhail Oleszejczuk, 21-9, is improving the game, but we've seen people who train with the nerds, striking specifically does seem to have a little bit of an improvement when you train with those guys. And I think that Mikhail Olashechuk has been a good example of that. Like, you've seen noticeable improvements. There was a time where Olashechuk was in serious jeopardy of being cut, in my opinion. I mean, like, he really was on the cusp there for a little while, and it was a little bit shaky ground, but he's made a remarkable career resurgence for himself. Marc-Andre Barrio has been a guy who, he's tough and will walk through the fire, but that involves getting burned, unfortunately. So I think that all of those factors being what they are, like, Marc-Andre will be able to tough out a lot of the shots. I think that this probably ends up going a little bit longer, I would say, just off of rip. My gut is saying that, this kind of gets into like third round territory, but it's going to be a lot of striking that's going to get to that point. And I think it's just going to be a systematic wearing down of Marc-Andre, unfortunately. And that's where Olashechuk has now found his success, is when he's able to, it's not even like crazy volume striking. It's just consistency. He now can strike consistently and land consistently, to the point where it just ends up being a numbers game towards the end. And then Marc-Andre does not have the wherewithal to turn the tide. So it just starts to add up after a while. So I would say if this is going to finish, it'd be a little bit of a later finish, but Olashechuk either way, unfortunately for him.
The one thing that I will note that it's interesting, on DraftKings, I've brought this up that they have the fun facts page. A while ago, this was back when Mikel was facing Cedricus Dumas. They had a stat where Mikel had finished all of his southpaw opponents in the first round by knockout. And I was like, where do you even pull this out of? Like, how do you even do this? And little did I know, Cedricus Dumas gets finished, southpaw, whatever the case may be. All that I'm saying here is Marc-Andre's orthodox. So we're not going to get a first round finish, is what the stats are telling us.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So either way, I mean, Marc-Andre is tough, and that is going to serve him well in this fight. Olashechuk had problems with Shara Bullet, probably for similar reasons, I would say. I mean, Shara a little bit more creative than Marc-Andre, most definitely. But either way, I mean, like, it's, this is going to be a gritty fight, I would suspect, because that's the type of fighting that Marc-Andre Barrio does. But again, Olashechuk with the striking, I think that's going to be the big deciding factor.
So we're both taking Mikel.
I guess we have to.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's that one then. This one I like a lot more here. This is Gene Masamoto versus Farid Basharat. Masamoto, a guy, now his last fight, a little bit close, I would say. I think that a lot of people didn't necessarily agree with the decision of that, but still showing tremendous potential as a younger guy. He's 26 years old. Farid Basharat, one of the Basharat brothers. There's definitely some good things to like there. I think that this is a styles make fights kind of fight. I think that Farid probably gets his hands on him a little bit more when it comes to Masamoto. He's more of a striker, good striking on his side, and Farid maybe wants to wrestle a little bit more than he's going to want to. But I've been impressed with Masamoto, and I've got to believe that this is going to be one where he's going to be able to shine a little bit more than he did in his last fight.
I honestly was thinking about taking Jean as well, but this is the other Basharat just got finished. I'm hesitant to believe that this Basharat brother is also going to lose, but I mean, they're not really the highest touted prospects. It's not like there's some crazy good people that we need to be on the lookout for. These are just the type of people that should be able to get finished by, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but by the random Brazilian prospect. There's plenty of them out there, but it makes sense for just some random Brazilian guy to just get his opportunity against the undefeated, and he comes in and makes a name for himself. I know Jean Matsumoto is somebody that I look out for, but this could be his coming out moment as people like, yo, John Matsumoto is actually very, very good. If he finishes Basharat, I'm not saying it's likely, I'm not saying anything, but that's what he needs to be doing. Obviously, you need to finish every fight, but name can be on the map very, very quickly here. And I think Matsumoto is a good pick, but just to be different, I'm going to take the undefeated fighter. I'm taking Basharat here.
Yeah, and to be fair, I do believe that Farid is the better of the Basharat brothers. I think Javid is the one that just got finished, and as we've always said, one sibling generally is the one that's going to take the lead. Farid being the undefeated fighter, that certainly seems to be the case here. There's something that I saw in Matsumoto early that I'm going to be sticking with on this one. Like I said, I think that if he can keep at range and just let his hands go without getting himself into a lot of sticky clinch situations, then the striking will eventually add up for him. Basharat is tough. I mean, he's a dude who has stuck it out through some hairier situations when it comes to striking in the past. But I just, like I said, you got to recognize when you see the spark is where I'm going to go with that. So I will stick with the guns and go with, I think he's a Gene. I don't think he does the John thing,
I think you're right.
yeah. So Gene Masamoto, I will take him. So we're going to be locking that one in.
Hell yeah. I'm taking Fareed. You're taking John.
All right, there you go. Speaking of Dustin Jacoby, he's fighting on this card, and he's fighting your guy Julius Walker over here. Julius Walker, someone I think that you were, thinking there was some potential in.
There was definitely some potential after the first fight. I would definitely say I saw something in the first fight that looked a lot like something that I would enjoy to see a couple more fights down the line. Now, in his next fight after that, I lost a lot of hope for him. I'm not going to lie. It did not look like the fighter that I saw in the first one. Uh, it's funny because he's one of these people that shoots for a lot of takedowns and he's very, very tall, but he's not very good at them. So he ends up just sitting on his knees with his hands locked. And like, where do you even go from that? It's Julius Walker against Dustin Jacoby is interesting because I want to put my stock in Julius Walker, but Dustin Jacoby, he's been looking really good on the feet, guys. I mean, I know, again, I talked about Dominic Reyes, just he let this dude just punch him in the fucking face, but Dustin Jacoby has looked very, very good since. I mean, very good boxing, very good striker. Julius Walker, he's going to try to wrestle just like he has been in all of his other, matchups, but at 26 years old, I still think there's more for him to learn. He's coming from, not a non martial arts background. I'm going to go ahead and take Julius Walker. I'm going to believe that I know something, guys. I got this.
Wow. All right. Well, then, perfect one for us to differ on. Again, I gotta lean on Dustin Jacoby for this exact fight because yeah, Dustin Jacoby is a spotty guy. I mean, 21-9, 21-9-1. This is definitely not like the record that screams "pick me," but really, what I see in Dustin Jacoby is a guy who is consistently one that gets, because of the record, I think gets counted out also because of the age. He's 37. That also plays a big factor in why people perceive him the way that they do. But he is a dude who will pull the victory out regardless. And against a guy like Julius Walker, who, like you said, early on, maybe some flex of potential, but that last fight was almost kind of a little bit of an embarrassment, I would say,
Yeah.
as far as, what we saw out of him. I think that Dustin Jacoby is going to be able to take any of the fall on you takedown attempts because that's what I saw a lot out of Julius Walker, especially when he starts to gas, man. That was when it was really starting to become apparent. Dustin Jacoby's got a good gas tank for a light heavyweight. I'm thinking that there is potentially going to be a Dustin Jacoby knockout on this one. I want to believe. Now, Dustin Jacoby will make you wait for that. Like he's not one of these dudes that just goes out there and run and gun gets the knockout, but like eventually when he starts getting the rhythm, this is the dude who I saw knock out Vitor Petrino live. So I mean, like I saw firsthand that it can be done. I think that potentially that happens again. If not, I think he just evades all of Walker's potential attacks and just peppers him up enough to get the win.
I like this one. I think this is a good differentiating pick. I like it.
Yeah, and honestly, if you're right about this one with Julius Walker, this might be one that would like change my mind like in a major way. I mean, again, coming off the last performance, which wasn't great, and the first performance, which I know was a stock raiser to you, I thought it was not necessarily as much for me. I mean, granted, I give the guy credit. He's 7-1 coming in as a young dude out of a different sport. So I mean, like there are things that's like, man, this is interesting that this guy is doing this and doing it decently enough to stay around. I need something a little bit meatier to sink the teeth into as far as like actually being high on him. This could be one of those things. So I'll give him credit if he wins.
Hell yeah, I like it.
All right. Well, going down to the prelims. Oh man, a guy who has been someone who I wanted to root for so long and has been letting me down, it seems. This is Alex Morono going up against our Ukrainian king, Daniil Donchenko, the Ultimate Fighter himself. You've had some things to say about Ultimate Fighters, but does that apply to Daniil?
Nope, because I had hope for Alex Morono in previous fights, and I watched him get finished in his last fight. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember who it was against. Maybe Daniel Rodriguez or something. Maybe.
He lost to D-Rod. I don't know if that was the last one, but yeah, that was definitely amongst them.
But either way, Daniil, he proved that he is. I mean, we already know he's a fighter. We know he's gritty. We know he's able to mix in a lot of different things. Alex Moreno is just going to stand on the outside and have that stupid fucking stance and just, I don't know. I think Daniil's going to have his way with him. Daniil, whether or not he has shown me everything that I need to see out of him, he's 24 years old and he hasn't shown me bad yet. Alex Morono has shown me bad, so I'm gonna go ahead and take Daniil.
I think it makes perfect sense. What I, really a good fight to bridge from the last one, because you see a younger guy. This is Daniil is 24. This kid's fresh off the fresh into the sport basically, and doing as good as he is and is looking as good as he is. Like the difference is that like you see the instincts in Daniil as a fighter very clearly already.
Mhm.
He goes out there and really brings the fight. He's not afraid of getting his face bloody. He's not afraid of any of the takedowns or anything that the opponent brings to him. He really does put it all on the line. A good representation of himself in there. Granted, he does get a little dirty at times, which is something I don't like. But that aside, hopefully that doesn't happen. Either way, if all things being equal, you're right. We've seen bad out of Morono. Morono's a guy that I actually was I was a big fan of for a little while there, because he was a dude who I thought, like, head down, stay the course, tough it out, get into these fights that are a little grittier than they have to be, only because he is that tough and he will go the extra mile just to pull the victory out. But that's not the type of fight that Daniil is going to bring to him. If Daniil comes with a good amount of technique on top of power, on top of speed, Morono just does not have these things anymore, unfortunately. And if you're losing to Daniel Rodriguez, I think that says pretty much all that you need to know in the dynamics between these two people. So
Yeah, we're taking Don Checo for sure.
yeah, I mean, I think that you got to really with this one. Until Donchenko, shows me otherwise as well. I mean, he might be the one that breaks the trend of the Ultimate Fighters not looking so great.
What I would like to say, and what I'm very hopeful for, is that his cornermen consist of Robert Valentine, because I don't know if anybody out there knows these guys are training partners. So
Let's go, Robert Valentine. There's a place for you in this sport, even if it's not in victory in the cage, my friend. You cannot leave us, Robert Valentine. We're super fans.
hell yeah,
So yeah, I like that, and also a training partner of Amasov as well. So
nice.
I mean, you're in good company there. All
All
right.
right.
Next up, oh, good Lord. I posted this in the Discord with the caption, "He just won't leave." And no one took the bait on it, because the question is, which one are you talking about? And exactly is the answer. This is Nikolai Veretennikov versus Nico Price. Veretennikov, a guy that I have just hated watching fight. Every fight that he fights in, I do not like watching. I do not like him as a person. I think he is an asshole for what he did to Austin Vanderford after their fight. Nico Price, I like as a person. He's a family man with a lot of kids and all of that stuff, but he has just been inconsistent as it comes in the later portion of his career here, at least where he is at currently. 36 and 36 with this. Yeah, this is just, I don't like this fight, period, I'd say.
I listen, all that I know is that the first time I saw Nico Price was on Robbie Lawler's retirement, and one uppercut from the clinch folded this dude. Looked a little fluky to me. I don't know, dude's retirement, send him off. But listen, basing off of that, true statements, I think Nicolau, God forbid, you got to finish this dude. I'm not saying that you got to finish it for my heart, for my spirit, and nothing like that. But like, I've seen this dude finish by nothing kind of deal. So I would love to believe that this dude could just land something, because I'm pretty sure this dude's a pretty. I'm trying to think. They were. Let me just double check really quick. No, never mind. Maybe I'm thinking of a different guy, but I'm still going to take Veretennikov, even though I know it's stupid. But
Well, I mean, it's just that he is so bad. Or at least was. He did win his last fight, I believe, and that's why I was like angry, because it's like, damn, he's going to be sticking around longer than he needs to. But yeah, I'm like, I don't like this guy's style. I think that he overcommits to things that are not going to happen for him, and for that reason, I want to believe that because I think that he likes to try to go in for well, no, actually I think he's not a great wrestler. That I think is the issue, is that he's more of a striker. That's what ended up getting him the last win. Nico Price is a pretty good grappler. That is his strong suit. It's his bread and butter, is going to the ground. So he had a lot of problems with Austin Vanderford, who has not had a lot of success since that fight. For that reason, I will side with Nico Price. Again, age goes out the window for both these guys. It washes out. They're the same age. Nico Price, get this win and get this guy out of here for me. Do this
hell
for
yeah,
your boy.
yes, please.
All right. moving on here. Hey, another fight that is like whatever. Bruna Brazil versus Ketlin Sosa. Of course, Bruna Brazil, the forgotten fighting nerd.
Yeah, this fight, what can you say? Flip a coin, who cares? I mean, I'm not trying to be that way, but like these are two of the most uninteresting women when it comes to the divisions. Um, Honestly, out of when you talk about Brazilian women, these are two of the ones that I could not even name off the top of my head, and they're facing each other. So that should just tell you anything. I mean, it's crazy. So this fight, honestly, Bruna Brazil. That's who I want to take. Please don't tell me you want to take her too.
I mean, that's kind of where I was going, but equally on the same page. I'll take the coin toss. I'll go with Ketlin Sosa. Why
Okay.
not? I mean, again, they're neither of them. It's like you said. It's not even that I'm like I think one thing is going to happen or not happen. They're both uninteresting fighters, so anything could happen, but not in a good way. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah.
like there's a whole wide range of possibilities as to what happens in this fight. None of them really equal up to anything that's going to be entertaining, at least on paper. So sure, Ketlin Sosa coming out and getting a win, why not? Go ahead and do it. If I mean, Bruna Brazil, what I will say is that like I do remember that recently, didn't she fight in? She fought on Road to UFC actually,
Yes.
but not in the competition, of course. And she fought and beat Doctor Sleep. Not an accolade that really like screams any kind of like stock change, considering that Doctor Sleep's big claim to fame was slightly fluky, if you really want to break that down. Ketlin Sosa may be a little bit more consistent in some of the things that she is good at. What those might be, I don't know, striking, I guess. This could be a striker's affair, perhaps. If I want to be a little bit kinder to them, perhaps they'll see this stay on the feet for a little while, and then maybe it'll just be a volume fest. And if that's the case, then yeah, Sosa has as good a chance as Bruno does. I'll take Ketlin Sosa.
Hell yeah.
All right. Next up on the list, I didn't realize we had both
I
Boshrats
just
fighting.
noticed that as well.
Yeah, all right. So Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Javid Bashrat, of course, the brother Bashrat. 14-2 for Javid, still not terrible. I mean, not undefeated, but not that's certainly a fine record. Going up against the 18-5 Nurmagomedov, who of course is not related to Habib.
This is an interesting one because for the longest time I've ranted and raved about how he's an actual good Dagestani because he'll stand and strike, but he unfortunately is not that. He is somebody who will stand and strike, but he does not have anything else in his bag. And it's unfortunate because once he gasses out, he looks really, really bad. He's almost, and I hate to compare them, but he is literally Tagir Ulanbekov. Like there's nothing different. There's no difference between them. Once they gas out, there is nothing that they can do that is even good. And I hate to say it, but Basharat just lost, viciously knocked out by Ricky Simone. I Oh god, I'm gonna have to go with Saeed, unfortunately. Because I've rooted for him since the beginning. There's something that I saw. I want to trust what I've seen before. I've seen Basharat just get clipped and destroyed by Ricky Simone. Saeed Nurmagomedov just gasses out and looks horrible, but he can still potentially catch somebody. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Saeed on this one.
Yeah, I think the thought process does track. This is a tough one for that exact reason because I've really not been hot on either of these guys. I don't really think that there's a whole lot of like noteworthy accolades for either of them to like hang your hat on as this is the thing that's going to be the deciding factor here. That being said, I want to believe that with what you said about Saeed gassing out late, that if Javid can at least survive through round one, then maybe it'll be more competitive later in the fight. It is a big ask, I guess, but I don't think that Saeed has the same power as Ricky Simone does. I mean, he can still catch somebody, yes, but I don't think that you have to have the timing, the power, and the throw to make it all happen. That I'll at least think that maybe Javid is able to evade that. So I'll go with Javid, but just I mean, I'm not confident in the pick. It's just
Okay.
one of those. It kind of washes, but I'll keep it interesting. I'll go with Javid Basharat.
Hell yeah, I like that.
All right. Next up, this is a little bit of more of an interesting one. This is Wang Tong versus Eduarda Mora. Mora, who I have never thought was anywhere near a quality fighter, going up against Wang Tong, who did have a bit of an issue in the fight before last, but then redeemed herself, but not fully. So, it's an interesting dynamic here.
Now, when I was talking about strikers off the back foot, I said Conor McGregor is one of the prime examples of somebody who could strike off the back foot. There's one other person that I would say is a good example, and that's Wang Tong. She is very good at striking off the back foot. And Moira is one of these people who doesn't really strike well, and then all she'll do is feint and then try to level change and get a takedown. If Wang Tong is able to use her elusive footwork and strike on the back foot and keep Moira with her head down and keep eating strikes and then, stand back up and have to figure out if she's going to strike or if she's going to shoot again, keep her guessing. Don't let Moira, the woman who lost a third round in 2025 to Lauren Murphy, do anything of relevance to you. I mean, if she gets you down, listen, we know once you get down, the grappling is not necessarily the greatest. Gabriela Fernandez was able to go ahead and finish you. But if you watch how that sequence set up, it was because Gabriela got a little wild. She was willing to risk the biscuit there. And she, knocked Wang down and got her to the ground and got the submission. Moira is not going to create that sort of situation. And I have been rooting for Moira, and I'm gonna go ahead and differ for the one time against the hometown hero for me. But again, Lauren Murphy's not very good, and she put up a decent performance against you. Wang Tong should have a very good performance on the feet, and I'm really hopeful she does not get taken down.
Well, that I think is really the $1 million question on this one is what I shudder to think happens here is that Eduardo Mora turns into a little koala bear and just is backpacking Wang Tong throughout the entirety of this fight and not allowing her to stay at range. That I think is really the method to victory. And that's the unfortunate element is, it's like you break these fights down. What is the pathway to a solid win? And there is a very clear one for Eduardo Mora, unfortunately, for Wang Tong in this one. If she is savvy enough, Wang Tong, to recognize when the level changes are coming and is able to do exactly what you're saying, fight off the back foot and land the shots, then it could spook Mora into not shooting more and then force her into the striking, which is not her strong suit. I just think that there's going to be potential for her to get her hands on her, get her to the ground, and it's going to be a big problem thereafter. It's like Wang Tong she's proven that she is good with her striking when the fighter that she is fighting is finishable. But when you have any level of durability, which we saw a little bit of from Mora, which is kind of surprising because I didn't really expect her to have that, but we did see a little bit of durability in the Lauren Murphy fight when Lauren was getting her hands on her. I don't think that she's going to be in too much knockout jeopardy unless she dips her head at the wrong time and gets caught with a kick, which could happen. But again, just based on the fact that there is a clear, defined method, and it is the sweet spot for Mora. It's within the wheelhouse of where she likes to say she's very one-dimensional, and I think that her one dimension pairs well, with this style. Styles makes fights kind of thing. I think that sadly, which it kills me to say this, but I am going to go with Eduardo Mora. I
All
know.
right, we
Dude,
flipped on that one.
no, I don't like this.
All right.
I'm not happy about having to make that choice, but Wang Tong, I just think that there's too much of a problem with the grappling. And again, it's what we talk about with any heavyweight or any fighter, really. If you are good at only one thing, then mixed martial arts is not a great sport for you.
I am wondering if ESPN removed the bet lines from this version of the site because I know they have ESPN Bet now, so maybe
Uh,
they moved all the lines to there because I have yet to see live like the odds for any of the fights that we've gone through for the past 2 weeks.
it
So
is true. Yeah, it's an interesting note. Yeah, no betting odds for whatever reason, but I couldn't tell you why. I mean, there's so much sports gambling going on nowadays that maybe there's some, other things at play with all of that. But
right.
either way, moving on to the next fight here is Muin Gafurov versus Jacob Wickwatch. This is, of course, Jacob who got the split decision win, I want to say, right? Split decision
Patchy mix.
over Patchy Mix, of course. And now Patchy Mix is packed his bags and heading over to Japan to go fight in Ryzen. Muin Gafurov is a fighter who I have always thought was subpar. So what are you thinking in this one?
I mean, you got to go with Jacob on this one. He came in, had a great performance on his debut. Clearly shows that he wants to be here. Put on a performance that, is showing. When I saw the performance, obviously I was betting on Patchy Mix because you can't let the dude come into the organization and beat you. But once I saw him actually do it, I was a pretty big fan of what Jacob was doing here. And like you said, Gafarov is, dude, he's 20-6, already got 6 losses. I mean, it's not the craziest thing, but like 6 people have already figured it out. Let's see if Jacob can do it. I mean, he's a champion coming in from another organization. What was it? KSW Octagon.
Yeah, I believe it's KSW.
So sky's the limit. He obviously has the potential. It's not like he's just some random guy who's never accomplished anything. He's definitely set his mind aside to become a champion and has done that. Coming into the UFC, he beat somebody who was a former champion as well from another organization. I think he's going to be very determined to get this one done. I don't know if he'll finish, but he should still win this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is a perfect resume booster for Wickwatch. I mean, I think that he showed great intensity in his approach to fighting, which is exactly why he beat Patchy Mix. He really exploited Patchy Mix's lack of activity and made the fight his own. Moon Gafarov may be a little bit more dynamic than Patchy Mix was in that fight, but he's not as skilled, I would say. So really that washes as far as I'm concerned. I liked a lot of what I saw out of Jacob here. I think that he really had a really nice performance in his debut in the organization. Like I said, Muin Gafarov, a guy who I'm not going to fall into my own trap by saying I recall his fight with oh gosh, now the name is escaping me, but the Japanese fella who was having a terrible performance, and I said, don't let this fight make you think that Muin Gafarov is a good fighter. So I'm going to take my own advice on that. Moon Gafarov, not a guy who's ever impressed me, including the victory that he got in that fight. I think that Jacob takes this victory.
Nice. I like that.
There we go. And of course, starting this card off, this is actually a pretty good fight, all things considered. This is Claudia Saigula versus Priscilla Kishweda. Saigula was a person who I quite notably said I thought was one of the worst fighters I had ever seen at previous times. She has defied that moniker. Priscilla Kishweda, longtime veteran of the UFC and one of the dirtiest fighters that I can think of in the sport, but coming off of a knockout victory not too long ago. Obviously got power there. What are you thinking in this?
Um, Zombie girl versus the Polish girl. Well, the Claudia is very good on that. She's a very elusive striker. She stands on the outside and she peppers shots in. Priscilla Cachoeira, zombie girl, she's just going to walk forward and try to throw shots. I don't know if it's going to work in this performance, but in typical fashion, you have your women's matchup that starts the night. It will be a banger, and it's probably going to be. I'm hesitant to say a decision because Priscilla is just not the type to go to decision, but I would like to believe Sagula is going to win by decision for this one.
All right. I am going to go with Priscilla Kishweda. I think that the experience is going to be there for her. Definitely. I do acknowledge that Saigula is not as bad as I thought that she was. Perhaps it was, jitters in her previous fight or whatever. I remember being very harsh on her, and then, kind of eating my words on that. So I certainly acknowledge that that's the case, but Kishweda has just been around too long. I don't think that the striking that Sagula is going to offer is going to be as much of a problem for her. And then also Kishweda does have a little bit of ground game, just a little, but enough. And I think that also could make the difference if it ends up going there. If she decides that that's the case, I think she's more powerful, definitely, than Sagula is. And for those reasons, I think I got to go with Kishweda, even though I'm not a fan of her in the slightest.
Okay, well, I was honestly surprised with a little bit of them. The ones that I figured I was picking your side on the argument, you flipped the script on me, so I'm excited. This will be
I
fun.
know. Well, I had to pick against the people that I like a lot. Here. I mean, a couple of these are fighters that I quite vocally am not a fan of, but I do think that the dynamics are such that they might get these wins. Of course, we will find out together if that is the case when we watch these fights live on Saturday night on our individual watch-alongs. Of course, you can find me at youtube.com/@YamaShow for that. And Chase, I know that you can tell them where they can find you.
They will find me streaming on Saturday when the UFC is around and on Friday mornings when ONE FC is on at youtube.com/@CPSmalls.
There you go. Follow me at Yama Show on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook. Again, appreciate all of the support that we've been getting on all of that. Should have some new content out on the channel this week. I am very much hoping, if only another live stream of some sort. We'll see if we can get another watch along going. I'm going to try to get a video out. And of course, myself and Chase are brainstorming and getting ourselves ready for our next installment of MMA on Film, so we appreciate that very much. And if you have not seen our Roadhouse review, make sure that you check that out as well. That's all I got. Chase, any last words here?
No, I just wanted to give a big shout out to the chat. I know everybody was here rocking with us for a little bit. We had some technical difficulties throughout the show, so I apologize on my end, on my behalf, of course, because the chat would have liked to mention that it was my issues. It was not Thinkers. It was me. It was me. No, but appreciate everybody for being here. You guys are awesome. Seriously, you guys, you make staying up till 1:21 in the morning very, very entertaining. So shout out.
Absolutely. Much appreciated. I'm sure that I had some of those problems as well. And I also appreciate you guys sticking with us through to the end. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate you as always. We will catch you in the next one. And until then, have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your week. And as always, fight on.